sing opera to start the show? I think a lot of people would really enjoy that.
I don't know very much opera.
Yeah, I mean, got like a lingering throat infection. Let's sing some opera just before I record like 6 hours of collaboration videos.
Yeah, we got you packed full today. I just realized how disrespectful that is to your healing process. You gotta
It's okay, he didn't do the NLSS yesterday, so he'll be fine.
Yeah, I took yesterday off, so...
You're just a lazy ass. Welcome to the Roundtable podcast, everybody, for April 3rd, 2015. Wow. I know calendars. And
wow.
Sad news, we're all going to have to cancel the podcast. Yep. It was a good run. Yeah, 5 episodes seems to be, kind of the threshold for things. I mean, most of our Let's Play series only run for 5 episodes, so I suppose that's to be expected, but...
True.
April Fools!
You can't do an April Fool's joke.
It's still April! All of April is an April Fool's month.
So here's the problem with that whole joke.
No,
this video is going live on April 3rd, and we're recording this before it's even April.
Early access people are still in the season, buddy.
You missed the day.
It's for them.
And early access is going to be the 2nd, man.
The 2nd is like the day that you reveal all the jokes, so I gave them the joke and the reveal all within 15 seconds.
I can't wait for all the Facebook posts that says, I'm pregnant, for like a whole day.
Every year, I had a male friend in high school who would post, I'm pregnant. And he would wear a fat suit and post pictures. And every year he got bigger as he put on the fat suit. So he was just like, eventually he got to the point where sadly he didn't even have to put the fat suit on. He was just posting pictures of himself and he was just saying,
that's kind of funny.
He really got into character.
He did, yeah. He was committed to the joke heavily. Welcome to the show, everyone. So good to have you here again. I'm BaerTaffy, joined by Northernlion, Tricycle Smile,
Look,
and
Call me whatever.
Games.
Call me Rick.
Torkelson.
Torkelson. Callback. Nice.
Yes, and we are very happy to have you joining us again. We're going to be talking about a few games today, as well as some topics revolving around Twitch, including the YouTube live streaming resurgence. A lot of you may have heard about the YouTube getting into more heavily the gaming side of things. We're also going to be talking about Captain Forever Remix a little bit. Dyscourse, which we were all finding before the recording, that apparently it has a lot more, variety to it than we initially suspected. So that's an exciting topic. And a little bit of touching on Pillars of Eternity, and then the big one for this block. Oh, I always want to say week, which you can make it week by heading over to patreon.com/roundtable, potentially getting us close to that $2,500 goal, the milestone which will allow us to become a weekly program. Thank you very much to all the supporters over there. But other than that, how you guys doing?
Pretty good.
Feeling okay? What's going on over there, buddy?
Mathas has got a problem, it looks like.
Yeah, that's something...
That was a terrible noise that scared the shit out of me and woke my up.
Dude, you haven't slept for like 48 hours. I'm pretty sure
he's hallucinating.
Yeah.
No. They just opened the garage over there and it made a horrible dying animal sound.
They let the ghost out.
They let the ghost out, and it scared Maya, and it scared me. So
animals can feel things like that before they actually.
I'm gonna be very jumpy today.
Get some sleep, man.
I will after we're done.
You take a nap. We'll come back and record the rest of the show.
I'm not hallucinating yet. So what's the big topic of the week?
The big topic of the hey, you gotta do that plug again. You gotta say a big week. Big topic of the fortnight. Is the
fortnight.
Fortnightly doth we decree YouTube has gotten back into the live broadcasting territory.
Ah, yes.
Oh, that kind of rhymed.
Did it? Ooh.
Decree and territory.
Yeah.
It's a stretch, but I'm just saying, you did a good job, Bear.
Thanks, man.
It was a close miss.
I got a lot of Dr. Seuss in me. Don't think about that.
Would you like to?
Yeah.
There you go. As proof of its seriousness into the YouTube live streaming resurgence, they've already hired over 50 streaming savvy engineers. YouTube is looking to get back into live streaming by way of focusing more on esports and the gaming side of things. Shock, shock, surprise, surprise for a whole lot of people. And in place of responding to a report from Ars Technica, YouTube representatives sent them an animated GIF of a little girl shrugging her shoulders, which I like a lot. But
it's pretty good.
This report being what it is, tell me, guys, would YouTube resurfacing the live streaming area in the form of it being a gaming slash esports focused thing, does that incline you to A, look into live streaming on YouTube more, and B, look into viewing live streams on YouTube more?
Yeah, I mean, the reason that I stopped streaming on YouTube, I originally started streaming on YouTube because all your audience is there to start with for most people anyway. So it was really convenient to get people to the streams, but the stream functionality was just so far behind Twitch. Like, you can talk about Twitch's chat delay, like the streamer has like a 10-second delay before chat actually sees what they see. On YouTube, it was like the chat didn't even work. It would load in like discrete 2-minute bursts. So like if you saw something happen at like 2 minutes into the stream, chat would load like 100 messages at 4 minutes and just push it all off. Yeah, it was the worst. The video quality was actually fine. And I think it's like watching streams on YouTube. I watched some non-gaming streams on YouTube lately. It's fine if you're not chatting, but if as a consumer, if YouTube kind of doubles down on making chat work for gaming-related streams, I'd be interested in watching. Whether or not I'd be interested in the streaming depends on a lot of things. Whether or not it works, and you know how Twitch's trajectory in the next like year or so, depending. You know, this could be something that's like 6 to 8 to 12 to forever months away. You know, how it relates to existing networks that we may or may not be partnered with, et cetera, et cetera. But at least it's, unlike some of the other competitors in the streaming community, at least it has the kind of traffic built in already that it can compete with Twitch on kind of like a scale level, which if you go to some of the other competitors right now, it's like, well, you're going to be starting from zero if you have an existing audience on Twitch, basically.
Right.
Right. I mean, I think the big thing that YouTube needs to do is just make it really, outside of obviously making it work properly, what's going to get people to stream on YouTube is just making it super convenient. I'm on YouTube most of my day anyway, and for me to go over to Twitch, I mean, it's like, oh god, you have to boot up OBS, and you have to go to another website, and it sounds like it's just like a few extra baby steps, but to cut those baby steps out and just be like, I'm already on YouTube, and I'm just going to hit the stream button while I have OBS loaded up, making it that much more convenient while making it functional and making chat work, could be enough to push certain people, lazy people like me, to stream on YouTube more than I stream on Twitch because, like Ryan said, my audience is there. As somebody who is mostly just a YouTuber, to stream on YouTube where my audience is, and as long as you make it convenient, would be enough to make me go, hey, you know what, I might as well just stream on YouTube while I'm at it.
Well, I don't know why it has to be one or the other. I mean, there are ways you could actually parallel stream to both. And let's not forget also that, you know, Twitch has a whole system already built up to help you monetize. There's subscriber stuff. There's all kinds of other, you know, side add-on things that YouTube hasn't even kind of really broached into the community of yet. So I would just want to wait and see what they do with all of that stuff. And if they're interested in competing on that kind of a level, then maybe down the line I'll see when it comes to contracts where I go with things.
Right.
There,
I mean,
there are ways to parallel stream, but most Twitch partnership contracts have exclusivity on Twitch built into them.
Yeah, no, I mean later down the line to see if that could be negotiated or what.
I mean, a lot of this is
right.
hypothetical, too. We don't know what, like you said, we don't know what YouTube is going to do when it comes to doing, you know, monetization and being able to do subscription models. We don't know. I'm assuming they'll be aiming for something to be somewhat equal to or equivalent to Twitch. Another argument I read recently is like, well, what about YouTube's copyright system and all that stuff? And I still sit in the camp. I honestly still sit in the camp that people who think that's not going to hit Twitch eventually are in dreamland. That shit
already has.
It already started to, yeah. But I think
it's not as bad, but it's definitely
it's not
begun.
as bad because it's not as live. But I really do think that eventually it's going to hit live streams and not just VODs. It's going to be more crackdown as these lawyers, as these companies decide to say, yo, they're using our music even during a live stream. They shouldn't allow it. We shouldn't run any commercials they run will be going to us, this, that, and the other. And if that's going to be part of day one YouTube streaming or not, I don't know. But if it is, I mean, people will be like, well, just stay on Twitch. But I think it'll hit Twitch eventually anyway. So
hit you in
I
the
wonder if
VOD
that's
sounds really
possible.
dangerous.
I don't know.
Protect your
Yeah.
VODs.
Protect your
Always
VODs.
protect your VODs. YouTube, I mean, okay, so the focus is very centric right now, as far as we can tell from their live streaming reboot, of broadcasting events, and that's kind of been what YouTube live streaming has focused primarily on, not just in the gaming aspect of things, but also with, you know, they've done the presidential debate stuff on there from time to time. They do concerts very frequently, which Twitch
award shows
is getting into a little bit as well. Yeah, award shows, things like that. So I don't think YouTube is really concerning itself very much with monetization for streaming partners and making the interactivity more enjoyable. I think they're, like Ryan said, like they already had a good footing as far as the quality of the broadcasts and the ways in which they want to deliver the primary mechanism of allowing people to consume content live on YouTube. But another big thing about it would probably be how YouTube obviously is not a site where people go to consume live content. They're doing this as a sort of branching out, unlike Twitch, who are established as you come here to view live things, and that's what the entire focus is. So I'm curious to see whether or not they are going to try to dive into those aspects of it more. I'm curious to see if they want to improve upon their god-awful, abysmal chat interactivity system. I mean, it's
step
just it's just as useful to leave a comment on a YouTube video, on like a 1 million view YouTube video, as it is to try to chat in a YouTube live stream. It's
very true. Yeah.
It does nothing for you.
The only upside was that it was actually all archived, right? Once the stream was over, you could go and look at all of them. So, I mean, I would have kind of liked if that was an option on Twitch as well, but also it's not that important either.
I think the elephant in the room here, to some extent, and like, don't take this as me bad-mouthing Twitch, but in the last year or so, Twitch has gotten worse. Like, the service of viewing on Twitch has gotten worse with the chat delay, and I don't know, maybe it hasn't gotten worse as a partner, but there's been stuff like the music changes, and then even though it's out of their hands somewhat, like the recent security breach didn't help matters very much either. No. So I almost feel like this news is kind of conveniently timed. YouTube is like, well, we're a company with a lot of resources and a lot of built-in audience here that probably can compete, and confidence in Twitch is probably lower than it's been at any point in like the past couple of years. So it seems like a good time to try to capitalize on that. Mind you, YouTube streaming sucked really badly. So
they have an uphill battle when it comes to
that. Like, I feel like there's this innate kind of like underdog appreciation that people have. They're like, yeah, fuck Twitch, but then like YouTube
as
is
they're
like,
watching
well, we're gonna
Twitch.
Right, yeah. Twitch sucks. Like, I only spend like 8 hours a day on it, and it pays like my bills. But then people are like,
Hitbox. No.
Yeah, let's go to Hitbox. Whoa, YouTube's getting involved. Fuck YouTube. I think maybe Twitch isn't so bad. Like, I feel like
posing that as a
YouTube,
question.
I think
like, if YouTube does streaming really well, I don't know who people are gonna hate anymore. I don't know how it's gonna work.
You hate both, man. You hate the man.
I guess you just hate the man.
Who's the man among us? Who do we need to hate here? It's Mathas.
I would say if there's any question, just go to Ryan's audience. Fuck that Mathas guy.
That shrug, dude. You
Clearly
just you fucking accepted it instantly as soon as I presented that.
This is like, there was no question. Who do we hate?
The guy that we're trying to raise $50,000 to fire is the answer.
It's a valid goal, right? An interesting little nugget from the.
It's like, I still like you.
Oh God! Don't do that.
I didn't want them to hear.
Don't eat the microphone. An interesting perspective from the back end to note. If you are, I don't know if this is exclusive to YouTube partners or not. Which, saying I'm a YouTube partner, you don't really need to qualify that anymore these days. I'm pretty sure they've lowered the standards significantly enough to where I uploaded.
It's like 3 years ago.
I started a channel. I know I uploaded one video that was just a slideshow of ferrets I didn't own, and I got partnered instantly. They partnered me right away.
We noticed you have 1 view on your video. Would you like to put ads on that
video? That's incredible. Well done. It's
Did it have a song in the background? This ferret slideshow?
Yeah.
Like Home Sweet Home by Motley Crue or something?
Oh, you've seen it.
Is that video still up? Because it's going to blow up now.
Yeah, dude. I had, you know what? This is a true story. I had a video of my dog. This was a few years ago. She's passed away since. But I had a video of my dog where I was just being an idiot. And I was, like, laying down in front of her trying to get her to speak and stuff. It was really just so stupid. It got, like, 50,000 views. And
nice.
I was, like, ashamed of it, so I deleted it. But
it
was like generally well received too, and now it's gone forever.
YouTube Cash is cat and animal videos.
Oh yeah,
and liquefied thumbnails.
We're working on that. All of those things. There's one more thing I want to bring up, and that's about the whole infrastructure of streaming on one versus the other. If you're dealing with Twitch, you're dealing directly with Twitch, but if you're a gaming content channel on YouTube, you're probably dealing with an MCN that's then dealing with YouTube. So there's this extra layer of kind of confusion about how the contract splits work and whether or not revenue share is going to be as viable on one versus the other. So I was just kind of curious what your guys' input was on that whole thing.
I did want to make mention before I got into that whole video about my dog thing. I was going to say you can see in the back end of the analytics report that they're actually starting to separate a little bit more the identities of live streaming revenue against on-demand stuff. They even have a tab on there that says on-demand now as opposed to live. So when they're building out things like that, it leads me to believe that they are trying to work in an infrastructure, which is good that they're doing this now, because it seemed like the first time that the live streaming booted up, it was so terrible that it was maybe more of an open beta test without it having that exact language. So that is curious to me of whether or not they are going to, dive into that a little bit more, just based on those little nuggets.
I'm trying to think. I don't know. Well, no, like I'm trying to think how I want to approach this, because we have contracts with our MCNs, and those contracts, I mean, they may vary from person to person, clearly, but I don't know if they cover live streaming.
Machinima definitely had clauses that said
it's
was like
Ryan's face.
Right. You don't have to. Nobody has to say anything about any of this, and we're not going to blow you up or anything.
I know Northernlion's contract in particular has a clause. He shared it with all of us.
I can only speak for myself.
I don't think mine does.
There may or may not have been contractual amendments presented. That had live streaming in them.
Yeah. So
contracts existed in the past. How's that? Is that better phrasing? Across many MCNs that did very specifically state they wanted to create an exclusivity deal with YouTube live streaming, which I know was a major turnoff for a lot of folks, myself included. I saw that and I had to kind of amend that deal because I was getting into Twitch partnership at the time too. So yeah, it's okay, so there's two sides to this. There's the side where YouTube just focuses entirely on event broadcasting, like we mentioned. They just make it so you can watch the large tournaments on a grander scale because YouTube's audience just brings in so much stuff. Like, they throw a banner on top of their website, and that is potentially being viewed by billions at a time. And that is the kind of draw that sites like Twitch really can't bring at the moment. So I tend to lean toward that reality as opposed to them. I mean, like, again, those analytics data things are kind of telling for the potential future of partnership with YouTube being more integrated with live broadcasting, but I tend to lean more toward the idea that they're going to be focused primarily on events for the ongoing future as opposed to trying to get back into the competing with Twitch side of things.
I mean, they did specifically say they're getting into video games with a focus on esports. So, I mean, you're looking at esports events, probably, League of Legends World Championship, Dota World Championship, StarCraft, all that stuff. That's something you just throw a banner up and be like, you can just go watch this. It's a huge event. Go watch it right now if you're into it, as opposed to worrying about the individual streamer. I mean, again, it's all, wishy-washy. We don't know. We'll see what happens the next 6 months to a year. But it's interesting to think about, because I think you're right. That whole, to be able to just throw a banner up and be like, this is happening now, and then millions of eyes.
Promotion on Twitch. Same kind of thing.
Yeah, but Twitch gets like 1% of the viewership.
I mean, same idea though. That's all.
Yeah. No, that's I agree with Mathas. I think that again, I don't need the lampshade. I'm talking about hitbox. There have been the competitors that have risen up for Twitch that take kind of like a streamer's first approach. They're going to try to siphon because it sounds kind of malicious, but they're going to try to entice streamers to leave Twitch and bring their audiences to hitbox. YouTube is very much going to work in the opposite direction, as far as I can tell, because it's not an exaggeration to say that the monetization on YouTube compared to Twitch, with the same audience, you might make literally like 100 times more on Twitch. Like, that was a big difference, and it's not the difference between making like $1,000 and $1 million, or
if you're partnered at a very small level on YouTube, say you have like 2,000 subscribers or something, you're probably pulling in, like $50 a month at a good amount.
Generous.
Yeah.
So
generous.
YouTube is going to have no problem getting viewers. The question is whether or not they'll be able to get the kind of like variety and personality focused streamers, because without offering, like, even if you could get double the viewers on YouTube streaming or 5 times the viewers, without something like a direct funding model like subscriptions, you can't make up the difference in what those streamers will make on Twitch via subscriptions, probably. So I really can't see them managing to do anything but events, at least right off the bat, without having some kind of direct fan funding model, which they kind of have on YouTube, but
yeah,
hasn't
they're starting
really
to get into that a little bit.
it hasn't really reached any kind of like zenith yet.
And the other thing I'm thinking that Hitbox didn't have that YouTube has, especially when it comes to just thinking of esports events and, you know, being into that scene, is money.
Yeah.
YouTube can just be like, yeah, you're gonna run the League of Legends World Championship and you're only gonna stream it on YouTube because here's multiple thousands of dollars.
Here's a truckload of money. We'll
And
deliver
now,
it to you in a
now you
flatbed.
just exclusively will stream this event on YouTube because we paid you the money to do so. And they're gonna that's a good way just to start boosting an audience right there. I mean, Hitbox can't do that.
And another interesting perspective on it all is to consider again the fact that Google was very much in play to purchase Twitch.
Yeah.
Remember those horror stories back in the day before Amazon swooped in was the hero of all mankind.
Remember the sky is falling, the world is burning panic that was happening.
It was legit kind of scary, though.
Hey, yeah, I mean,
I found it to be.
That's a whole nother debate, of course, but yeah, if we had been a
Are
podcast
those
back
people? We don't need to be having this conversation for those people because they won't go to YouTube. Like, if YouTube, even if it has a totally like viable streaming platform, they prefer to diversify and keep, you know, half of their eggs in one basket, half of their eggs in the other, their half of their eggs in another basket, and that's half their bags in another box, and that's there's totally fine. You know, there's validity in that for sure, but
well, I didn't even want to necessarily note on that. What I wanted to speculate on is whether or not these changes would have taken place if Google had acquired Twitch.
probably.
And
not.
I think
No.
no,
No,
I think
because
probably
they would own it. So why would they need to compete with their own? It'd be the same thing as like World of Warcraft 2 announced and being released. They'd just be feeding off their own subscribers of World of Warcraft 1. There'd be no point.
Like Google, after they bought YouTube, they phased out Google Video.
yeah.
If only they'd get rid of Google Plus.
Yeah, the one big difference, though, that I think is also worth noting as far as like fostering smaller, more personality-driven streams is that there's not really much in the way of community or support when it comes to YouTube. And it does kind of require a little bit of one-to-one interaction occasionally between the platform and the streamers. And YouTube just doesn't care. Like, their support is non-existent. So that's why they can take a hands-off approach with big events. But I just don't see them interacting with individuals unless they're, you know, the giant freaking names.
That's why they can reply to report requests or comment requests on reports from Ars Technica with GIFs of little girls shrugging their shoulders. That's. I think I actually got a YouTube support email with that exact GIF one time. It's like,
at least you
I've
got one.
I've got 3 copyright strikes on my channel. Can you guys help me out? Like, sorry.
They got
don't
claimed by
care.
ad rev for a third party.
Yeah. So, all right, so that definitely leads into our second discussion point here of whether or not we all feel Twitch actually does need some level of competition. I think we've gotten to kind of a synopsis that YouTube is going to be focused more on the events broadcasting, probably actually going to be... I think they're really just going to steal all of the major events that Twitch has done. Like we touched on that too. Like they can just... They have the power to do so, and why wouldn't they do it?
It's going to be money. That's what's going to convince them. There's no other way for them to compete, especially if they're both a big event is going to stream on both platforms. There's no way I don't think YouTube could really compete. Sure, they'll have an audience, but with Twitch, because people go, what it's going to take is here's 200 grand or more, depending on the event. It's going to be exclusively on YouTube. Nobody else is going to be able to watch it. And as much as you hate YouTube, if you are into the league, just as an example, League of Legends World Championship, and YouTube purchases the rights to stream the World Championships on YouTube, you're going to go watch it because you're not going to have any other choice unless you want to wait a week and see like VODs elsewhere. It's just going to be a, here's cash, done.
This might be a little bit of a tinfoil hat argument, but I can't help but wonder whether or not the divergence of the things like Ultra being broadcast on Twitch right now, I think they're really just very quickly and desperately trying to test the waters because they can feel YouTube breathing down their necks is just this giant beast of a thing that's saying, hey, those are cute little events you're doing. I'm just going to go ahead and
they want to build some relationships quickly before they don't have the chance anymore to get their foot in there.
Yeah. See, I kind of saw it the other way, that it was Twitch's way of kind of like not taking on YouTube, but starting to like slowly kind of bleed into a more generalized approach to streaming that maybe could make them like the YouTube of streaming as opposed to just like the YouTube of video game streaming. I didn't take that as them like trying to like diversify so that they have an escape route if YouTube comes into gaming, but rather just so that they could have kind of a wider appeal. But it's all speculation one way or the other, I guess.
It's a little of both, too.
Yeah. I wonder how much they do rely on so a primary example would be something like the International. So obviously a massive tournament, huge scale. If YouTube just comes in, well, first of all, you got to wonder whether or not, again, they have something like an exclusivity deal with Twitch where they're saying, like, we will broadcast this event on Twitch for the next 5 years, blah, 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 regardless of competition. But if they don't have something like that, if YouTube just comes in and says, hey, Steam, we'll broadcast this to billions of people, I don't say no to that if I'm Steam, which means Twitch is SOL with one of the biggest, probably one of the biggest moneymakers. I gotta say, it's probably gonna be like a giant chunk of change as far as their annual report is concerned. So
that, yeah, that's what I always think is the International League of Legends, like those two world, it's just crazy.
Yeah,
it's gotta be.
The International, for those who don't know, is a massive Dota tournament, Dota 2 tournament. It got millions, I think, millions of viewers at some points over the course of like the grand finals going on, things like that. Giant prize pool. It's a huge event. It's massive. It's the kind of thing that probably brings tons of new viewership to Twitch as well. I mean, like, they get that site traffic, a lot of metrics that they probably present to shareholders and people like that depend on huge scale events to drive that sort of traffic.
Though it kills every other stream in existence.
Yeah, definitely. It's just kind of a negative side effect to it.
It's such a big event that it's almost like people are citing it as something that's legitimizing esports as mainstream entertainment is kind of where they're headed.
Yeah.
So, to put it into perspective.
I think it's a little too early to say that YouTube will do that, but I agree that it's mentally there's like no barrier to stop them that I know of, at least. And you know, it sounds like it is a little like conspiracy theory-ish, but that's exactly the way that broadcasting rights work in like sports. You know, you'll have sports networks that will bid hundreds of millions of dollars for the contracts to show NHL games or, you know, NFL games in specific markets and stuff like that. I mean, I think it's maybe a little quaint to think that, you know, our industry is too small to warrant that same kind of...
We're too polite to do that.
Right? Like, this is games. We don't do that stuff.
These guys are all just meeting in a small little room talking over a laptop, right? No, it's... honestly, something like the International could become maybe even the Super Bowl of esports, where these giant companies, like, there's only two really major players in there at the moment right now, but maybe they swap hands, you know, like things like the way the Super Bowl works right now is there are three large broadcasting networks. I think it's NBC, Fox, and I want to say CBS is the third one. And they actually take turns. The agreement is they take turns broadcasting the Super Bowl. So that something like that could happen where, you know, next year it's broadcast on YouTube and next year it's broadcast on Twitch. That seems probably a lot more far-fetched than the idea of YouTube even coming in to try to take those things away. That's just, you know, much further speculation. But that's becoming a legitimate possibility, which is very interesting to say the least.
At the same time, you know, YouTube, I think we would all agree that, especially Google, its parent company, has a lot of money.
I think I could agree that Google has a lot of money, yeah.
But it's not like it would be Google going against Twitch. It would be the YouTube division of Google going against Twitch, which is itself almost like a subsidiary of Amazon, which is also a rich company. And you don't know, like, maybe YouTube would...
pockets are deeper.
Well, I think probably Google's, but the question would be, like, whether or not, you know, YouTube would feel comfortable devoting like X% of its budget to buying an event, whereas for Twitch, you could probably make the case that holding on to something like the International is more important to them and maybe justifies a larger expense. Or maybe even, you know, a company like Valve might say, it's been awesome to work with Twitch, and the international's gone off mostly without a hitch the past few years. Like, why mess with a good thing? So it's all like theory crafting right now, but
yeah, definitely. Valve's kind of getting into the broadcasting game. Now that we
Steam broadcasting, people keep talking about it, but I don't think it's ever going to be like the way Twitch is or the way YouTube is. At least it's a super like far away off from that right now.
Yeah.
All I've seen Steam broadcasting used for right now is like, help me get through this part of the game, or pop up a notification while I'm trying to record that's like somebody wants to watch you play Rebirth while you're recording a Rebirth run that people are going to see the next day anyway.
Yeah. Or porn. You know,
I should start doing that instead of instead of Skyping you, just be like, "Can I watch you play Rebirth?"
Dude, you should sell friend invites to your Steam account.
Hey,
and then you can get the early scoop on your Isaac episodes.
There are content creators that have done that.
At the $15 Patreon tier, you can add Northernlion on Steam and watch the Rebirth happen live.
No.
No.
Maybe if we hit 50.
If we can get Mathas,
then I can hire Mathas to be like my admin guy on Steam. He can direct all the requests.
Oh God, no, please. I mean, back to the root question. I mean, if you want to wrap up the conversation, is competition good? I think competition is always good. It's going to force Twitch it's forcing Twitch to be better, because if they're not better, they'll just fall by the wayside. So I don't think that'll ever happen with Twitch.
They
honestly.
need it. They do. I do feel, and if you look at my responses to things like, I mean, we're going back like a year, but if you look at my responses to like the outrage of Google potentially buying Twitch, I'm almost like, I'm like the pro corporation guy.
Do you have your tweets printed out as like notes you can refer to?
On March 17th, 2014. No, but like, I'm like, you know, what people I think have an innate or learned kind of distrust for big businesses, which is fine, and I think in many cases big businesses have kind of like earned it. But with Twitch, I actually do feel like they've maybe not gotten complacent, but I feel like their service has gotten worse in the past year. And like the music stuff, I give them the benefit of the doubt over that. I don't think you're going to find a company that wants to get huge that is going to be like, oh no, we're going to go like toe-to-toe with like copyright holders and stuff
like that. Yeah.
Exactly. It's just not going to happen. Like, that's the realities of getting to a certain size. And if Hitbox gets to that size, they're going to have to deal with that shit too. And anyone that thinks they won't is just kind of deluding themselves. But the chat delay is still crazy. And forever it was like, oh, well, that's just like a temporary glitch in the system as we work it out, and it's like a year later and it's still happening.
Don't talk about it, they'll forget.
Dude, it's not even the chat delay as much as it is just that there's something broken about the site every single day on a stream.
That's true.
There's always something broken. There's login errors, there's people getting other people's dashboards, there's
that's a scary one.
not working.
I was trying to stream
kinds of things
a week ago, and for the first time ever, like every 20 minutes, the stream just crashed. And I was like, what?
Yeah, just not loading. That happens pretty frequently. I mean,
you're like picnic baskets everywhere, man.
They're good with their support. They're generally pretty transparent about what they do, and they try to make it, you know, reasonably quick resolution. But if we could just have like a few weeks where there's not any problems, that would be nice.
It really has been. There were weeks like that in like 2013 and 2014. You would have like a month with no issue on Twitch. It hasn't happened recently, and I don't think anyone's trying to say that like running a site like this is easy.
No, not at all.
There was like that. They did have that like shareholder kind of memo that they printed up that was like Twitch is responsible for like 2% of all data transmitted on the internet in the United States. It's crazy. Like that's a ton of data, and it's still not an enormous company, even though they have a lot of money. But at the same time, if competition provides a better service and puts pressure on Twitch to provide a better service, then that's good as well. And I would rather see Twitch succeed than see them get pushed out by this competition. But the most important thing is just having the best service that we can have as a viewer and as a streamer. So
don't get me wrong, I love Twitch. It's my favorite thing.
It's so good to work with them. Like for all the negative things, it's so much like support is a huge issue that on YouTube you can't get anybody. Yeah. And on Twitch in like 10 minutes someone will respond to you.
No, they're definitely the devil and the angel as far as that's concerned. Like Twitch is still, well, I mean that also leads me into the devil's advocate argument almost of with Twitch still maybe even being quote unquote in its infancy, to the point where they're still able to address people on an individual level right now. That kind of goes away when they grow up and expand to the point of, obviously we're not going to even try to compare them still to YouTube. I think people kind of don't understand how insane it is to try to make that comparison right now, by the way. Kind of off of in a tangent here, but YouTube is... All right, hold on. Visual aids here. Let's say YouTube is this giant bottle of antacid for the audio-only listeners.
Like this.
I'm holding a giant
Kirkland,
bottle of Kirkland brand. So this is the Costco shit, so you know this thing's fucking huge.
Sponsor.
And then, like, Twitch is probably, like, so you see this battery here? You see that little...
Oh, yeah.
The little nub
Kirkland.
on top of that? Yeah.
Oh, the nub.
I'm trying to get Costco in on this business, man, but then there's just that little nub right there. That's probably where Twitch is in comparison. That might
So they
be
have
drastic,
what
but-
you're saying, they have the luxury of being able to respond to everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
The bigger they get, the harder that's going to be.
So then, so say we were able to put ourselves into a reality right now where Twitch has two major competitors. We'll call them Snitch
Hitbox
and Hitbox. Twitch,
Yeah.
Snitch, and Hitbox. They're like the three big players in the streaming game.
It's becoming a math problem, and I'm terrible at math.
If Snitch and Hitbox both travel down the road at 45 miles an hour with 2 tons of apples and oranges in the back,
How many subscribers will they gain by the time they reach Chicago?
It depends if they have a text-to-speech generator to read out the names of the subscribers.
oh yeah, that gets you big. So, does Twitch still not have an established enough foothold in whatever area this happens to be of the web to justify that level of competition? Because I could present the argument that there's not enough people, basically, to really allow for 3 companies to be successful to that size.
If you split, let's assume uniformly you create a Twitch 2, Snitch, for example,
Twitch to
and
Snitch.
all
That
audiences
sounds
are
like a really
basically-
terrible FTP protocol. Twitch to Snitch.
And assume that like all audiences are halved. So if you normally got like 1,000 viewers, now you're going to get 500, and your doppelganger gets like 500 on Snitch. It becomes very difficult, I think. The barrier to being able to stream consistently or even full time becomes a lot higher. So it's actually
It's
like
already hard.
it is, but in a way, it's good on
No,
Twitch
yeah, for sure.
because there's no competition, and that
what
I
I'm
don't
saying.
mean that as insulting to Hitbox. Like right now, 98%, 99% of the streaming audience is in one place.
Yeah.
So it's like YouTube. Like there's Daily Motion and Vimeo and shit like that, but 99.5%
Remember the days
people who are
of
watching this shit.
All the
are on there.
YouTube shit going down. Why don't you just upload to Dailymotion? Why don't you just
Oh
bring
my
your audience to
God.
Dailymotion, right?
Yeah, you're right. Just going to Daily Motion.
It's so simple. Why didn't I think of that? That's why all the big YouTubers are going to Dailymotion right
Yeah.
now. But like it becomes very difficult. So competition is good, but it does also come with the risk that if there's two sites that are like evenly matched or have like even market share, it does become harder on the streamer as well, unless one of them gets like a clear edge and gets like all the audience. I think like competition, people think competition is the ideal. For me, competition is not the ideal. It's like competition and then the best one gets 100% of the market share and then never gets worse. But it never happens.
Oh yeah, that's a great utopia to live in. Can we go there?
We want competition, but like Twitch sees that YouTube is doing. This is the best case scenario, I think. Twitch sees that YouTube is getting into the live streaming game. Double down on infrastructure, making their service as good as possible. Keep almost entirely the streaming audience, and then everyone's happy. Otherwise, you need like a lot more people to be watching streams in order to make it viable. If the audience does get like split 50-50.
I think that's what you were saying. Like, even if you split it 50-50, it's already going to be hard. While even maintaining 100 of what you have now, I don't think it's already hard enough. Twitch is still, live streaming is still much more of it in its infancy than something like even YouTubing is. And making a full-time living off streaming is already fucking hard than it is. If you split that in half, it's going to be fucking even harder. So
I want to say, by the way, that I'm not like shitting on Hitbox.
I think you've already clarified that a couple of times.
I just want to make sure because people are defensive about it, and they should be defensive about it because I don't know anything about it except that whenever I go to it, the top stream has like 30 or 40 viewers. It's just smaller.
It's just a fact that Hitbox doesn't have the capital to spend to make it competitive right now. Maybe Hitbox will have its own niche audience in like a few years, but as of right now, it's so small in a market that's already tiny. So there's really no, I don't want to say there's no room for it, but they just don't have the leverage that they want. And it didn't help that didn't Hitbox, I mean, this is getting into a tangent, but didn't Hitbox come nefariously from like owned streaming, which had its own problems. People were like, whoa, I don't want to worry about that.
From what I understand, there was like owned 3D, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
They had a staff member who really mismanaged their finances, and the core of owned went on to make Hitbox, but without that staff member.
Okay.
But still, like the specter of that has kind of followed them around.
I remember when Hitbox came out, people were like, don't go to Hitbox. It's just owned people doing it again, and they're just going to scam you out of money. And I'm like, I don't know.
People don't realize Hitbox is actually an abbreviation for, hey, I threw Barry out. Barry was the finance guy that fucked everything up.
Kisses.
Excellent. And then, they've just been going from that. I also have to mention, I know this comment has already been written, but I know I pulled an ATM machine move by saying FTP protocol, so please don't roast me over the fire for that. What's interesting to note, you were saying, again, about like Twitch being in their infancy, something we don't realize, Twitch was started in 2011. Like, they've only been around, they haven't even been around for 4 years. Yeah. They're still so young, so I think, really, we may be getting the ideal circumstance here as far as hoping that Twitch will buckle down and begin to really work on building out its existing infrastructure and trying to make things better as they are right now, as opposed to trying to grow into this massive multimedia conglomerate. Like, with YouTube being the potential competition to take away some of the things they're relying on, then maybe they will end up doubling down on what they have established for, smaller, I don't want to say like smaller markets, but just the kind of people that still definitely hold by themselves the power to make Twitch a very strong thing. People like the Syndicate project, for example, like that's just one guy who by himself draws millions of eyeballs. That's the kind of thing that they can actually work with to maybe even supplant the potential losses of those big money events to YouTube. So I bet if you look at like the personalities, they probably pull in more subscribers per 1,000 viewers than the events do. Like someone like any of us, we probably pull in more subscribers per 1,000 viewers. Mind you, they have like 500,000 viewers sometimes than an event does.
Yeah. I would bet that too.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Are you sure?
I'm very sure.
Sure?
Do you have something worthwhile to say? You sound like
I feel like I cut you off. I just feel like I cut you off.
No, I mean, all I was going to say is I'd be curious to see how much of Twitch's budget is, made up by subscription revenue from advertising on smaller channels, because I
would love to see that.
That would be very interesting and would definitely help us to speculate further as to what
we know.
We can expect. Yeah.
we know what our revenue breakdowns are: subscribers versus ad revenue. I would be interested to see if that was reflected across Twitch, or if you look at a huge stream that's event based, if it's like 90% ad revenue. I don't know.
See YouTube adopt some sort of like subscription-based model.
Dude, I've been saying it for like 3 years.
I have too, man. Especially the way ad revenue is going down lately, like not lately, but like over the course of years. Just give a basic like $2 subscription, subscribe to your favorite YouTuber. No, because you have to get content off in order for that to work. I'm saying I'm just saying subscribe to them, and now they don't have to watch ads on any of your
Bingo,
videos.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like the thing they do for commercial sites that's like you pay this amount per month and you have access to the channel. I thought that's what you were saying.
No, that would be the worst thing ever.
Yeah,
for,
yeah,
no, I know. That would be terrible. I'm just saying they have that.
You can watch my videos with ads, or you can just throw, subscribe for $1 or $2. Like,
It's like $1 a month would probably be
that's
more
all I
you would
need.
make from their ad views over the course of 30 days.
Exactly. And
it's
it
by
would
like
just,
a factor of 100.
Yeah.
And it would just, that would be a dream come true. But
It's
totally off topic.
It's so it's win-win unless we're just so ignorant of like the corporate concept of it that because otherwise we're just like, why not make food free for everybody, right? Abolish money. But it's like I've been saying forever. I've been like, if you could offer like a monthly subscription with flexible pricing. Yeah, so if you were like Discovery Channel, you could be like $9 a month or something. If you're us, you could say like $1 a month. And you get no perks, but no ads. There are so many people who would be like $1 a month to not see ads and maybe absolve guilt over using ad block. Like that's not. I don't think the majority of people would make that decision, but I think a lot of people would make that decision.
People.
Yeah,
Because one person paying $1 a month takes care of like 50 people using ad block.
exactly. I would be
Probably more than
and
that.
admittedly,
exactly.
That's a really good point.
as I'm a little older, like I have some disposable income. But if I was like, yeah, I like your videos, I would pay $1 a month to not have ads in front of your shit for sure. But right now, the choice is like watch ads or have ad block, and the decision is like way too easy for most people. At least you either use ad block or you say like I'm gonna support this kind of like style of content. I want the internet to still be free.
I think we all recognize this. Like, it's an extreme inconvenience to have to watch ads.
Yeah,
like,
man.
There's no doubt.
Sincerely appreciate that. Like, that fucking sucks. It's so annoying. But to their credit, I would imagine that a system that allows you to subscribe for $1 a month probably costs them money in the long run. Like, the amount of things required probably to process that sort of stuff.
I don't know, man.
I seriously doubt they would.
You can pledge like $1 a month on Patreon.
Yeah.
They already have a system on
can-
YouTube where I can gate off content for subscription.
Yeah, but I mean,
rentals and stuff like that too. Yeah.
I doubt they would want to go the PayPal route. I don't know why exactly I would say that, but it just seems like
Use Google Wallet.
yeah.
probably.
I mean, they do something
Fuck
like Google
it, man.
Wallet
Make
for
it
sure.
for YouTube partners through MCNs or something. I mean, there's got to be a way.
There's got to be a way, but I just. Sorry,
What,
go ahead.
Doesn't it undermine profitability for the people selling the ads, though, to have there be... Yeah, see, they don't care about anything that undermines that. That's their number one.
Yeah.
They do have that conflict between like creators and themselves, or creators and advertisers, I should say. But at the same time, YouTube is a company, and okay, we're coming from the perspective of people that like go to your channel, watch your videos, and are diehard viewers. I bet that's like 5% of YouTube. I bet 95% is like embedded shit on BuzzFeed. Like, check out this 30-second video of this dude
that's a good
vaping
point.
semen, right? So
That's
My favorite video.
That's an actual thing.
No, yeah,
And
that
that bums
definitely
me out,
happened
man.
earlier this morning.
on Twitch, I was
Fair.
like, I hate that there's like non-skippable 30-second ads when you go to the channels on Twitch now. Like, it used to be an opt-in, opt-out thing.
Yeah.
And then they just grandfather anybody who had the setting off into like no ads when you go to the channel, which I love not having ads when you go to my channel. Because whenever I go to a stream and then there's like a 30-second ad, it doesn't matter what it's for.
Yeah.
Like, I was going to say Battlefield Hardline, but then it just sounds like I'm shitting on like the circle
Usually
jerk over
That's
that.
just the latest ad.
Exactly. So you go, you watch a 30-second ad for Battlefield Hardline, and then it's like, as an example, maybe like, you know, Brotato is offline. And you're like, well, I just wasted my time. That's not Brotato's fault, but I'm like, and I
Or
hate
the
that.
stream stutters and you refresh, and then it's like, oh, time to watch the ad again.
Yeah.
Well, that goes back to, because I was streaming yesterday and somebody mentioned it, that another Twitch problem where they'll send out notifications that you're streaming way late in the game. And you're
like the
like, well, I
equivalent of
just
not
said, and I just
sending
watched a
videos,
30-second
this is
ad, and they're not live because your notification is like 2 hours
The
long.
annotations from Twitch to YouTube have been broken for the last month, so every video
always
people watch
live.
on YouTube says I'm live, and I'm not. So people are just going there and probably seeing ads and leaving. And very soon they're going to realize that annotation's meaningless and it's going to stop being effective.
I think
Which
what
I have
sucks.
to imagine that we're just incredibly ignorant of like the meetings that go on between big video game advertisers and the company like Twitch or YouTube. Because for me, if someone pays $5 a month, it would be like in my position right now, it's a no-brainer to say no ads when you watch that channel.
Yeah.
But they just, like, if you're not grandfathered into it, they will not do it. I imagine that's something that maybe, like, I don't want to pick a publisher, but, like, a video game publisher was probably like, we're going to do a huge ad buy. And Twitch was like, well, you know, like 5% of a channel's audience won't see that ad. And they're like, oh, that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, instead, 50% won't see it. Thanks to their use of ad block. Okay, no problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so stupid.
But then
Which is
Twitch
why-
Turbo,
Actually, that was the argument I was going to make, is something that's probably a lot more likely to show up on the YouTube side of things is the equivalent of Twitch Turbo. And they're kind of already doing it, too. I'm guessing you guys have seen on a lot of the music channels, they give you the option to remove ads from viewing the music videos and stuff like that.
Oh, for Vivos.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think it's actually across everything that YouTube identifies as music. So it could even be an upload of, you know, Everclear on fucking Georgie94's channel from 2008.
I love Georgie.
Yeah, he's a good guy. And it still has a little option down there that says, like, you can remove ads from this video just by paying this monthly subscription fee. So I wonder if maybe there could be, like, the potential... I mean, this is, again, a very utopian style of thinking of YouTube just completely eliminating the ad game and saying, you guys give us $8 a month, ads are gone. And then the...
But have the option. You can watch for free with ads or... Yeah.
And then you can even say something like, the way Twitch Turbo does it is when the partner runs ads and Twitch Turbo viewers are there watching that channel, they are compensated for the Turbo view, I guess. I mean, and again, those are freaking fractions of a penny we're talking about as far as that's concerned, but that might be a potential way for YouTube to address the increasing issue of ad block, because they've got to be able to recognize that stuff too, much like we say we don't really have any idea what sort of meetings go on behind closed doors. There are people at YouTube more than likely on a regular basis trying to identify, isolate, and diminish problems associated with ad block. So
yeah, I have to imagine
that's something I wish would exist, because I
think like a YouTube Turbo, and this is as selfish as I can possibly be. YouTube Turbo is great for people who watch YouTube, and it doesn't hurt the content creators, but I prefer a system of individual subscriptions that are cheaper overall than like one YouTube subscription, because then you're actually kind of paying for some free viewers if you subscribe to a channel, if that makes sense. Like I would prefer, I'm glad Twitch Turbo exists, but I would prefer to have it in addition to like ad-free on a channel if you subscribe, because then you're not like it's a way of supporting flexibly the streamer or the content creator. So if you only watch like Mathas on YouTube, you can say like, I'll give Mathas $1 a month instead of giving YouTube $8 a month. And then Mathas gets like 70 cents of that instead of what he would get if he subscribed site-wide, which would be like, you know, 0.01 cents per
Lets
view
you
or something
tailor
like
who
that.
you want to support. It's if you watch one person way more than you watch anybody else, and you're like, you know what, here's $1, you know, as opposed to saying, hey, YouTube here's $8. It's just it's more personal that way.
$1 means more to us than it does to YouTube. I think
Yeah,
I'm trying to say.
clearly, yeah.
That's sort of what I'm trying to get at. And that's why things like Patreon are so good, and like why this is so cool is because people who like really like the content pay more than they would be paying for it in order to support people who aren't paying for it, if that makes sense. So my problem with Patreon, which is weird to say in a series that's funded by Patreon,
support us on Patreon,
is that it still kind of has this culture of like pledge like $10, pledge $20, pledge $100. What I would love to see on YouTube, and by the way, if you're pledging 10, 20, or 100, that's awesome, and thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
But I would love to see on YouTube like pledge $1, and then like you get a benefit of no ads out of it, and like $1 is so meaningful from like an individual viewer on a YouTube scale that like you wouldn't have to have people giving $100 to support content. You wouldn't have to have 10 people giving $100. You would get 5,000 people donating $1 instead. But I don't. Maybe
that
I'm missing
almost
it.
becomes like a communist line of thinking, right? It's like, hey, if we all put our
Goddamn
sheep into
commies.
this barn, then we can all just take one sheep and then we'll share.
know.
We'll all share and be
YouTube would
happy,
be
friendly, fun time.
surprised. Maybe YouTube would be surprised how many dollars people want to give. They haven't tried.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know what communist is, because communist is everybody giving $1, but then it's also communist. You got like one person giving 100, and then like a bunch of people freeloading off it. Or is that capitalism? I don't know.
I don't even know. All I know is competition for Twitch would be great. Like,
stay tuned for the next hour in which Roundtable Podcast becomes political discourse. But beyond that, I'd like to maybe
good chat
diverge.
Yeah, I mean, we can.
Now that we're starting to yell about communism, maybe we should start talking about video games again. You guys, how'd you like Captain Forever Remix? I don't think we have much to talk about here. I just want to talk about this game for a few minutes because it's really cute.
It's a cool little game.
It's really cute. That's what I was going to say about it.
It's a neat, simple idea that's easily replayable and is entertaining for short bursts.
I'm surprised that people are not as into this game as I am.
Who's not into it? You found somebody that hates it?
There's like muted positivity.
Well, before you say that, you should describe what the game is.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Ryan.
Captain Forever Remix is a space shooter that takes place in 360 degrees, kind of similar to Asteroids. But the hook of the game is that you basically build your ship out of modules, which are kind of like Lego parts. So you'll have structural parts, a little bit like Kerbal Space Program too. You have structural parts, boosters which provide thrust and directionality, different kinds of weapons like lasers, cluster lasers like shotguns, melee weapons like saws, beams, stuff like that. So you build your ship out of these, you destroy enemy ships with kind of like asteroid-style combat, their modules come off, and then you reconfigure your ship with their modules to become stronger, and you try to beat like 10 levels, and then at the end you fight a final boss, kind of similar to FTL, but real time. So that alone, when I was playing it, I've probably put in like 2.5, 3 hours thus far. I was like, this is like, it's early access, by the way, but it's not quite as addictive as something like FTL or something like Rebirth, something like Spelunky, but it's like almost there. Like I've almost got like a Rogue Legacy vibe from it that is like, if there was more of a culture and community around the game, I could see myself putting in like 10, 20 hours fairly easily. Like I think it's a really good game.
Well, the replayable element is that every time you die, there's actually money that you'll grab that drops along the way, and you can spend that on various things that have long-term potential for making your abilities better. For the one example would be that you only have a certain amount of time to build your ship after you finish each wave or each level, and you can make that longer, so you take a longer time to pre-configure things. And it's not dry or anything. Like, it's really simple. It's all physics-based. You click, you drag. Things just snap together in a very, like, visceral, fun way.
It's very satisfying, the snap.
Yeah, it's a satisfying feeling. And it's really easy to just reconfigure your ship, take it all apart, and just have fun with it. It's not a serious game. It doesn't require a lot of analytical thinking. You just play around. Feels good.
Experimentation is key and fun.
It allows you to have your own fun with it for sure. I think
the biggest
maybe
penis ship you can.
Yeah, absolutely. Just build a giant dong, and that's all you can hope to do. I think games like this, they're maybe a little bit tougher to get into because okay, here's put another quarter into the compare it to the Binding of Isaac jar.
Yes,
you're right. Yeah,
it's too easy not to make this comparison of, so say in a game like The Binding of Isaac, you're playing through and when you acquire new items, it just stacks onto what you've already got and you all of a sudden are way more powerful. And that happens, it goes and goes and goes, and then you just, this massive beast of a crying child, and that's a weird phrase. You get to the end and it's like, oh man, on this huge machine of death, it's awesome. But with this, you kind of have to create that yourself. It doesn't just happen where you get through the end of a level and all these modules show up and they're just like, and then you have this massive, amazing ship. You have to decide for yourself in like a span of 60 seconds, okay, so I can build this here and I can move all these modules elsewhere.
Right.
And it's like Mathas said, it kind of puts it on you to make your own fun. So...
And you got to break down the ship strategically. If you shoot the wrong parts, you destroy them. You don't get to use those parts anymore. So there's definitely some deeper thinking.
Yeah. And if you take too much damage, you lose parts off your own
you
ship.
can you can completely regress like very, very quickly. In Isaac, short of picking up like soy milk, there's never going to be an item that you pick up that just flat out ruins your run. Whereas in Captain Forever Remix, you can just have like one like weak structural part right next to your command module, and then if that's broken, you lose like half of your ship in like a second.
Right.
It scales so quickly too, so it almost puts you into positions where you can't help but lose out on some of those big advantages you had.
Yeah.
It'd be like if you had something like Brimstone, Polyphemus, Mom's Knife, and then you got hit by enemies to the point where you're like at half health, and then you lost half of those advantages. And that can be really discouraging for a lot of people. I think myself included. I actually found I didn't have as much fun with it because I had put so much investment into it, and then like at the snap of your fingers, that was gone, but you were still playing. In a game like Spelunky, you can have a jetpack, 99 bombs, and a compass, and then die to spikes, and you're like, oh, well, that sucks. Like, I start over. Like, that game had ended right then. Like, that feeling, it's difficult to describe, but that feeling is way different from still having to try to progress in the same
You feel helpless.
stage.
Like, all of your options have been removed, and now you've got to figure out a way to somehow get more parts back, which is just a really steep hill to try and...
But
and sometimes
that can be really cool, though, because when Nick and I were streaming it, I had a run where I got to, like, maybe, like, level 6. I ended up losing... Well, I lost every run. But I ended up losing, like, on level 6 or level 7. But I had a good ship, and then, like, an enemy beam just cut off, like, half of it. And then I lost the other half. Or I, like, deliberately, like, got rid of the other half. And then just became, like, one booster, and then, like, my command module, and then a laser beam that just shot, like, straight out. And then I was actually able to, like, pilot behind ships, and then just focus the laser beam on their command module. And it took, like, 15 minutes. But by fighting them in that way where they like didn't have any guns at their back, I just like find their weak point, I could actually break the command module and then steal their entire ship basically and just reconfigure it around my own, which was kind of cool. There are situations where you will come to a ship and there'll just be like shit shooting in 4 directions and you're like, well, okay, I can't beat them like this. It's just not possible. But it is possible to farm your way back up, almost like Spore style. You know, you start as like a shitty like 1-cell ship basically, and slowly you just conquer ships that are larger than you. But it's not always possible, I agree. But that's part of the fun as well. I think that's part of like the rhythm of the game that you don't get the first 15 minutes or so that you play it. It's not like you're not constantly getting better. You'll get better, you'll take like 5 steps forward, and then you'll take 3 steps back, and then you'll take 1 step back, and then you'll take 4 steps forward, and yeah.
Do continue.
Well, and then there's like other numbers involved in it between 0 and 9.
Somewhere you take 6 steps and then 9 steps backward. That was really
if you take too many steps back, you die.
Oh, okay.
If you take enough steps forward, you win.
Usually, you'll have a good chance.
You guys are deep.
I know.
I think it's really good. I'm surprised that I feel like I always take this stance, but I'm surprised that people have like a problem with it. Not that people necessarily do, but I
clearly does.
I think it deserves this. I think it should garner more attention than it has garnered thus far. But that's a number of different issues wrapped up with early access and it having kind of a cartoony aesthetic. And some people are not thrilled about the music, which is basically just like a couple of repeating tracks over and over.
Yeah, it gets a pretty standard early access stamp of approval for me as far as that goes. Where I really like where it's going. I want to see more of it. So I want to see more variety. I want to see it go deeper with expanding your ship out, like potentially getting yourself like 3 or 4 command modules, maybe see like what kind of craziness that can hold. So
yeah, I know when I can chop down trees.
Yeah, that's all.
When the zombies show up. God damn it! There's actually a game called Space Pirates and Zombies. He'd probably love it.
I have it.
Yeah, of course he has. He got 5 copies of it.
I do.
Captain Forever Remix, available in early access right now on Steam. We want to talk about Dyscourse now.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm excited to talk about this.
Dyscourse. This is going to be
Played
very
it this
interesting.
morning.
Dyscourse is an interactive choose-your-own-adventure game. Just came out, made by it's Alchemy.
Alchemy
Labs. Yeah, it's a play on words. I like those.
I like owls.
Yeah, owls are nice too. Want to talk about owls instead of this game? I think we should do that.
Yes. Wait,
right,
no.
Good. The art style is really awesome. I like that quite a bit. I think that's probably not even worth noting beyond that point. But what is worth noting is the fact that we all had very, very different playthroughs the first time we went through the game. So
let's start with how the game even starts.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, what's the premise?
So the idea is from you're playing this character named Rita, I believe, and
you played Rita.
Yeah.
I was George.
Don't even. I'm like,
I was the cat.
No way. You're flying on this plane crashes on a desert island, and you and like what 5, 6 others are tasked with trying to survive until you are rescued. That is a very basic general premise of how the game is presented.
So the best way, like as a comparison that I could describe it, is it's like a whole season of like a Telltale game in like a very micro
Like an hour.
way. Like you play it in like an hour basically.
Telltale Light.
It's not quite as confrontational either as a Telltale game. There were only a couple of moments where like you had to make a snap decision. Usually you have plenty of time to think about what you're doing.
I had like 4 snaps.
Well, okay, sorry. In my experience, because they do diverge.
And full clarification, if we're going to talk about this, there will be spoilers. So if you're in this idea of a game, either skip ahead or pause it,
Yeah,
go
we'll have
pick it up.
timestamps. Just go to the next thing.
Yeah, for those of you who are in that boat, I think we can all say that we recommend
We like it.
to check it out, but we are going to talk about our individual experiences too.
I will say that I think I probably have the least positive opinion out of anybody, judging from the reaction that I saw on Skype at least. I think it's just okay. I think it's pretty cool, but there's no way I would play it through more than twice, which for me was like an hour and a half. And I was like, okay, I've seen like, I don't know, I haven't seen everything, but I've seen the machinery behind the curtain.
Decisions,
Gotcha.
And like in my head, I could say like, okay, if I did this, this is how this would happen then. Probably not with 100% accuracy, but I've seen enough to not necessarily want to go back.
Well, let's talk about how each of our stories ended.
Yeah, you go
And then
first.
we'll
Start
Matt.
at the end?
You want me to go? No, don't start with me. Come on now. I played it last.
Start from the end and go back to the beginning. That'll be interesting.
How'd yours go, Bear?
So I actually did a series of mine, so a lot of people may have already seen this if they're watching it on my side of the Roundtable upload, but I ended up saving, so there are 6 characters total. There's Rita, Jolene, George, Steve, Teddy, and Garrett. And then there's a cat.
And a cat.
And the cat.
But apparently the cat doesn't have to show up, which is really interesting. But,
I've not seen this.
We're going to figure out why this happens, I think.
Yeah, I think we're gonna...
I think I know why.
I think I do too, maybe, but...
I'm probably going to spoil, like, I'm actually playing through it again for the channel, so I'm totally going to spoil for myself, like, every possible outcomes. This is going to be really good, but, did you guys get to the part where you had to, you found the tribal village and you had to elect a leader from the remaining party members?
Never even heard of that.
No,
None of you guys got to that point. Wow, that's
tribal
awesome.
village for me.
I think it depends which direction you go, because it gives you the option to go to, like, the other side of the island, or to go up the mountain, or
to build a
the
raft.
or to build a raft,
So did you guys all build a raft then? Okay,
I built
Nick
a
went up
raft,
the
yeah.
mountain.
I went up the mountain and then I built a raft.
Okay.
I just
So you built a raft to go down the
different
mountain.
runs.
Okay.
Oh, two different
two
runs.
different-
Okay, gotcha.
The first run, because that's your end game condition, right? Is like, do you want to end the game on the raft or do you want to end it on the mountain? Basically, at least that's the way it seems.
So I also, before that, prior to accessing the tribal village, I had to go on a hallucinogenic mushroom trip.
What?
So you guys didn't get to experience that either.
Maybe I'll play
I
this
saw
the third
peyote.
time.
There was peyote along
There's
the
peyote
desert. And
too.
she was like,
man.
she said, like, oh, I remember in my college days, I thought about trying this, and I never did. So maybe she
She
takes
refers
some.
back to her college days a lot. She really likes to reminisce.
Yeah.
But,
She's like an art buff, but she works at a barista.
Yeah.
You know, I can relate.
pretty stereotypical, if you ask me. Not all art majors are baristas.
Dude, Garrett pissed me off a little bit. Go ahead.
Mathas, when you reached towards the camera, I had my own little peyote trip right there. I thought your arm was like, I saw your arm reach over into Bear's screen, man. I think it was just that Bear's mic arm comes down at like the same angle your hand is for a second.
You reached through to Bear.
Both of you are really tripping balls right now, man. I mean, like, Ryan's all doped up on antiviral stuff for his throat, and then Mathas hasn't slept for 3 days, so that's fun.
3 days.
I had to get blood taken this morning, so I'm a little lightheaded too, and I had coffee.
I didn't realize coffee was like a hallucinogenic drug.
No, I mean after being lightheaded, to have
now.
coffee makes.
Did you have the apple juice and/or 2 chocolate chip cookies after your blood was taken?
Nah, just left.
Wow,
This
big
guy's
man up
living
in
on
here.
the edge.
Yeah.
So back to the game.
Anyway, yeah, Dyscourse. I ended up getting Garrett killed because I was incompetent. I went to the shipwreck and played through that whole puzzle. I failed to lower the water before allowing him to light off the fireworks to blow up the hull of the ship, and
Dude, that pissed me off so much.
That was real silly.
There's a part where you can choose like where you should go. It's not like the first decisions in the game are like food, water, SOS signal, and then there's like a juncture, and you can choose to go like look for more food. I think it depends what you do in like the early section, or you can choose to like investigate the shipwreck where there might be more supplies. But there's like the only puzzle in the game is in there, and I was like, they're not going to make me lower the water again. Like, in my head, I was like, this guy is good. Like, you move slower during the water when it's up. So that sucks, but I was like, I'm going to try it anyway. And he exploded, and I was like, well...
I lowered the water.
I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about right now.
Swim, man.
Been there. Yeah. I don't think Garrett had like the mental capacity to make that determination, especially on the fly like that.
Garrett was the gamer guy?
Yeah. Did you get him hurt? Did you get him to bonk his head onto anything?
Yes, I did get him to bonk his head. Yeah.
I got his belly sliced open.
Oh.
Wow.
You mean at the end?
No, in the early game. You get the decision to hunt the boars or stay at the camp.
Yeah. I hunted him too. I was successful.
I hunted the boar.
I hunted the boar.
I didn't hunt the boar.
Garrett wasn't there.
You didn't encounter a boar?
A boar came to the camp.
Okay,
tried to take our pretzels.
It takes 2 of your pretzels and then you go after it or don't.
Oh yeah, I didn't go after it.
Right.
Yeah. So
this is the problem that I have with Dyscourse.
Okay.
And this is one of the reasons why I don't like it as much as I think conceptually I like it. I could have liked it, I should say. Is because I do feel that there's objectively right and wrong decisions. Admittedly, I've only played it twice. But in the early game, there's a very early fork in the road where you can be like, do we hunt the boar that stole our pretzels, or do we stay here in case more boars come to protect our existing food? I hunted the boar twice. Actually, I've played through this decision 3 times. I've hunted the boar twice, though, and every time I brought it back, the meat was diseased. Does everyone else have that same?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I kind of dislike that that's an objectively bad decision. One time, I stayed back and I defended the camp, but I messed up one of the prompts, I guess, so one of our people got injured, which I guess is probably something you can do. If you have more skill, you can prevent them from getting hurt. Maybe.
I don't know if skill or like any sort of skill point system exists. I think it might just be
Well,
all...
I think like when you hunt the boar, you have to do that in like a specific order. You have to like distract it, then stun it, then hit it.
Yeah.
That's like, I think there was one of those when the boars attack the camp. If you wait there, like Garrett's like, I've got like my Game Boy or something like that, and you can be like, go stay back, or you can be like, go hurt them, or
yeah. There is a specific way you can do it to like let Teddy hit him in the head with a metal detector or something, and then you win that element. And I guess like
gets injured, like if you do it in that order. Okay.
Yeah, nobody got injured for me either.
I kind of dislike that there's like objectively good and bad choices. But I will say I thought there was an objectively good choice. There's another part fairly early in the game when Steve is like, let's investigate the plane wreckage.
Yeah.
He gets on top of the plane, it lights on fire, and then you got to tell him to jump off or stay on. 2 times I had him jump off. Both times he was fine. Then I watched Kate play, and she had him jump off, and then he got struck by lightning when he jumped off.
Really? So I had the same situation. I told him to stay on.
Oh, did
and
he
when he
get
stayed on, it started to rain, and he was like, "Oh, thank God, I'm gonna be fine." And then he gets struck by lightning and killed.
Maybe she didn't have him jump off. Well, that sucks again because like the 2 times that I had him jump off, one time he was extinguished by the rain, and one time he ran into the water and was extinguished by the water. So I think it's like objectively good to have him jump off, which for me kind of inhibits the replayability a little bit. Because the second time I went through the game, I was like, well, I have to deliberately make the wrong decisions to see different endings,
right?
Like to make different things happen.
I thought you were just going to tell me there were some random elements, and I was going to be so happy because then that changes the way the whole game's structured.
Yeah, that would have been nice, I think. Like, that's certainly where it is different from... Well, we made the comparison to it being kind of a micro Telltale style thing. And with the Telltale games, I think they have an overall story that they want to tell with those games. So the decisions you make can alter the way things happen, but they can't really alter the main arc of the story too much because obviously then it wouldn't function properly. But with Dyscourse, it's not so much and they don't necessarily want to tell a story. It's choose right or wrong and do your damnedest to save as many people as you possibly can.
Yeah.
So you can play through it multiple times and obviously get to an optimal strategy, and that's kind of what they want you to do, because, I mean, I only say that because there's achievements centered around getting everyone off the island together. And, yeah, it's, I mean, if there were sort of RNG elements, if there were just, like, ways to make it more interesting, I think that would allow for further playthroughs beyond just the 2 or 3 that it likely requires to figure out what exactly you have to do. Although, to its credit, I guess it's kind of impressive that for all 4 of us, well, I assume maybe Mathas didn't get to this point of playing through it multiple times.
I played it once.
Okay, but
That's it.
well, okay, so I'll pose that question to you again. Are you interested and, like, invested enough to want to do it again?
I didn't plan on playing it again a second time, but games like that, Telltale story-like games, I like to play once and be like, that's my story, and I'm done.
Yeah, same with me. I didn't really want to play it again. Also, I felt kind of emotionally attached to some of the characters until the way they reacted to certain situations just seemed so insane to me.
Yes.
So, like, I was on the mountain, ready to climb up to the summit, and there were 2 sleeping bags, and it was me and the couple, the husband and wife.
Okay, yeah.
And because of the way things had played out earlier, I had not given food to her, but I had to her husband. So she put me in this situation where it's like, I don't care what you say, I'm taking a sleeping bag because you didn't feed me. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm giving you a sleeping bag, and I'm going to take the other one. I didn't realize that was going to kill her husband. So when I woke up, she was like, oh, guess my husband's dead. Do you want to eat him? I was like, what the are you serious?
See,
That's
I tried to climb
nuts.
up the mountain, but because of decisions earlier, I was missing an arm, so I couldn't.
You were missing an arm.
You were missing an arm. You didn't meet the cat. How did all this shit go down?
So, like, the reason I was missing an arm is because, you know, when you're at camp and a storm hits.
Oh, did a tree fall on you?
No, so a storm hits, and basically the guy who's like a paranoid guy is like, we gotta go, it's a test or whatever. I listened to him. I'm like, let's just go. Let's just get
That's how
out
you
of here.
lose an arm for sure.
Yeah. Right. So we leave and we find a cave. Problem is there's jaguars at the cave.
Yeah.
So the
There were no
jaguar
jaguars for me.
attacks. Jaguar attacks, and instead of letting the other people fight, I get involved, and I'm like, I'll fight the cat. You guys stay back. I smack him with my frying pan, and then the cat swipes at my arm and like hurts my arm. Character passes out. I wake up in the cave. They amputated my arm
Oh, God.
while I was asleep.
Jesus.
And I
Holy
find
shit.
out that the wife of the couple had gone off looking for food and ended up getting killed by jaguars while she was out there. And then I pass out again, and I wake up again. We're like, we got to get out of this
The other
cave.
arm's
There's jaguars
locked
everywhere.
off.
So I'm one-armed. The wife died from trying to find food, and then we go back to the camp that's destroyed by the storm. And they were like, it's a good thing we left the camp because we wouldn't have survived this. So I guess leaving the camp was a good decision. That's how they kind of came off. But at the same time, I lost an arm, and I lost somebody who was hunting berries and got killed by jaguars.
Wow.
I like what Nick said, and I think it kind of ties into what Bear said about the Telltale stuff. I feel like in a way the game sort of cheats to make you care about the characters. Like you don't care about them because they're particularly well characterized, but because they exist. Like in a way,
George was the only one I actually liked out of the whole group.
right? Yeah, like when I had the same thing sort of, where it was like an agonizing decision. You're like, oh, who do I take with me? But then I was like, why do I really care? I don't like each one of these characters is defined by like one characteristic. Garrett is a gamer. Teddy is paranoid, potentially like schizophrenic, and like Jolene and George are married to one another, and then Steve is like Ed Norton in Fight Club. Fight Club.
Yeah.
I got such an Eeyore vibe from Steve, actually.
Yeah.
That was the only connection.
He
I
was
could
so
make.
happy before he got struck by lightning, though.
I think I would be too, honestly. That would be kind of a damper.
Because he was like, he thought he was about to die from being burned. Rain comes, puts out the fire, and he's like, I have this whole new look on life. I'm so excited to keep living. And we're like, oh, he's going to make it. And then lightning just like, bam, and then X's in his eyes, and he's just dead. Like, and then the lady, the wife, was with me. She's like, well, he went out honorably. And I was like, okay.
That's what bothers me, because people sometimes get down on Telltale games and say like, oh, there's like an illusion of choice because it kind of bubbles up and then all ties up at the end, so you can't really have hugely diverging stories. And in Dyscourse, you can have hugely diverging stories, but the disadvantage is that compared to something like Telltale, which can be like very deliberately written, you know, in detail, in depth, and really characterize everybody well. Here, the moving parts are kind of very visible, and you can see how it fits together modularly. Like, I had the same thing where, like, George died in my second playthrough. He got mauled by a jaguar right in front of his wife. And then we get into the cave, and she's like, well, I guess we should try to get some sleep. And I was like, well, that might call for, like, some new dialogue.
Yeah.
Like, if husband was murdered in front of your eyes, don't run, standard, let's get some sleep dialogue.
It was the same thing when we were on the raft, and it was me, the paranoid guy, and the gamer. And there's like a storm happened. Both of them fell off, and I'm like, which one do I pick? Because obviously one was going to die. I saved the paranoid guy. I let the big guy die. And at the end, we were just everyone was like, well, all right, he's dead. No big deal. And they're like, all right, well, you just watched him get eaten by a shark. But that's fine. That's all right. Don't worry about it.
She wanted to eat her own husband.
It was like a snap decision, too, wasn't it?
Yeah. Look, I walked into this conversation with a pretty positive outlook. Now I'm like, maybe not so much.
To be totally fair, there is kind of like a, you know, you get what you give element to that Jolene and George storyline. Because if you, in the early game, if you go out and like do an SOS signal, which you would never do if you were actually trying to survive, because you had, exactly. You're like, I need food and water.
Yep.
I was like, I need shelter, food, water, water, food, baby.
Exactly. That's how I approached it. I approached it, and these guys like SOS. I'm like, no, we need water, we need food. Let's take care of these things, then we'll worry about that.
So if you go out and do the SOS signal, you actually find like a hidden package from Jolene, which has a little bit of flavor text about her relationship with George. It's still, even knowing that, out of character for her to wake up and be like, let's eat my husband. It's not like she's like, George has kidnapped me, blah, blah, blah. It's like maybe they're in a loveless marriage. But still, even if you were in a loveless marriage, you woke up, you wouldn't be like, oh, sweet, like, delivery.
Yeah, no, I got the one where she was like, I asked one of them when we were going to bed, why don't you sleep next to each other? And she's like, well, he snores or something.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, whatever.
I talked to both. I got that, and then I talked to him the next night, and he was talking about how he's always forced to travel and whatever, and he just does it because he loves her. I was like, oh, there's something going on. But it didn't really matter.
I tried to choose the entire dialogue tree that instigates a separation of the two, just so I don't have to really feel so bad about it anymore. But yeah, it's got a lot of diversity to it, and every word that's spelled D-I, by the way, just for the sake of being, you know, fully invested in the conversation here, spell it D-Y. Just
there you go.
Just so you know.
I still think it's good. Like,
likewise,
I played it through twice, and the first time was because I was interested, and I also knew that we were going to be covering it. But the second time, I was like, I want to see how things diverge if you make different decisions.
Right.
I think that I don't normally like to approach things from this angle, but I think at the cost that it is, which is like $15 for an hour and a half, 2 hours of gameplay, is maybe a little bit of a tall order.
And a small short story coming down the line.
I will go back for that.
I will too.
There's very little characterization, I feel, in Dyscourse, which I found ironic because in the PR email, they're like, it has more words in it than Twilight. And I was like, that's kind of funny, but also maybe not the most like heady comparison. But anyway, not that there's anything wrong with that.
I think overall, Dyscourse teaches us luck is a skill you have to learn.
There we go.
There you go. Nice.
But like, if there's no characterization, to just have that indie island one, which is going to be like a similar story, but with indie developers, I'm like, oh, I've already got preconceived notions of who these people are.
Yeah, you know who they are, right?
Right.
So it's different if it's like, do you want to kill Garrett, or do you want to let Garrett die or let Teddy die? If it's like, do you want to let Edmund McMillan die or Ron Carmel die? I'm like,
do you want to eat Tim Schafer with Jonathan Blow? Does that sound like a good option to you?
That'd make a really good Dracula fetus animation, to be honest.
Yeah, nice. Where does the cat come in?
In the cave.
Yeah,
when you go to the cave, if you go to the cave. Okay, there's the storm. You can choose to stay at the camp or go to the cave.
I went to the cave.
If you go to the cave and you stay in the cave, the first time you wake up, like a cat appears, basically.
It had a bell on, too.
It has a great moment. Like, this is one of the things where I was like, why would you ever take the alternative? The cat shows up in the cave, and then it's like, do you want to grab the cat or let the cat come to you? And I'm like, I own a lot of cats. You let the cat come to you.
Yeah.
And then Jolene goes like, what if it gets into trouble? And I'm like, it's a desert island.
It's in plenty of trouble.
What's it going to do? Like, knock over a vase or something?
I wonder if it's because, like, I lost my arm. My character was too busy passing out from blood loss. I missed that whole thing.
like missed the scripting on that probably.
Yeah. What I did take a little bit of issue with the fact that a lot of times it felt as though, like, there were decisions that made drastic impacts. There were also things you could do that really didn't do anything at all. It felt like, for example, one that stuck out in my mind near the end of it. That was when I got to that tribal village after we had taken the hallucinogenic mushroom trip. We voted for the leader of. Yeah, I know that just all sounds like totally standard narrative, right? We voted for the leader of the tribal village, and then 60 days passed by.
Wow,
we were just
that's awesome.
It got to like day 65, and we had all just established some kind of
4 more
system. There were only 3 of us left. There were me, Steve, Jolene, and the cat, and we had voted Jolene as the leader of the village thing. And I gotta wonder if maybe we had more people, there would be some sort of uprising that could have taken place, because Steve pulled me over and he said, hey, I think Jolene's getting a little bit too full of herself being the leader of the island here. And it gets to the point where, like, shortly after that happens, a helicopter shows up, and you start to talk about, hey, the helicopter's here, let's go signal, let's go get rescued. And Jolene starts to make the argument of, no, we have a good life here, it's simple, it's great, we're all happy. And you're just like, no, it's a helicopter, we win. We did it.
Yeah.
And then
that's pretty cool, though, that I didn't realize it actually got that divergent. Like, it could last longer than 11 days or something.
I mean, like, it just, that is nice.
Fast forward, it just
it's just artificial, really.
I mean, otherwise it would be terrible.
I was gonna be like, Jesus.
Yeah.
That ended up being a lose condition where she still lived, but you didn't leave, so you lose?
I don't know. I didn't play through that element of it. I just said, like, okay, Jolene, for real, shut the fuck up. We're going to get on the helicopter. I wonder if maybe that could have been a possibility if you accepted that and then, like, it just fast forwarded another 365 days. Like, I got a lot of Castaway vibes from it. I don't know if you guys did too. Like, you can get to a point
Survivor.
Oh, yeah, Survivor too, and Lost. I mean, it wears its inspirations on its sleeve, I think, for the most part.
Yeah, very, very much so.
There was a part where you're building the SOS signal with Teddy where you can find a disc that came from the plane or something like that, and they say, let's call it Disky. And, I mean...
Gotcha.
You don't get more Wilson-esque than that, but, anyway. Lots of
so glad that it didn't make me eat the cat. I was going to be so mad at you. Like, when I saw the cat, my rationale was don't touch the cat because if it gets near us, somebody's going to want to eat it at some point, and I'm never going to forgive myself for playing it.
In comparison to Telltale, because I kind of had the same vibe, in comparison to Telltale, the tone is a lot lighter. Like, people are going to die and get mauled by jaguars, and you're going to have to make tough decisions, but everyone is kind of like, let's do our best.
It's happy but dark at the same time, and I wasn't really sure where the tone was going to take me, so I didn't really understand what decisions to make based on that.
Yeah, and that's what can kind of throw you for a loop when they approach death with such, a candid demeanor of like, oh, well, fucking got eaten by a jaguar, let's eat him. Normal. Dyscourse.
Is there a way, did anybody figure out at the opening encounter if there's a way to not have anybody's legs get chopped up by crabs?
I don't think there is.
I've tried it so many times, and if you hit the crabs with a frying pan,
they just go to the other person.
No,
they attract the other ones. Yeah,
they swarm whoever you hit. And if you scare them with the frying pan, they all go to the other person. So I don't know, did anyone try to just ignore the crabs? Maybe they just go away? Because then, like, 10 days later, I had Teddy. He's like, I could probably help if my legs weren't so torn up from those crabs you let me get eaten by.
Right.
Remember how much of a piece of shit you were that day?
Yeah, exactly.
The freaking crabs jump over them, you idiot. That pissed me off, too. There were a lot of problems where, like, these aren't problems, but you've made them be because adventure games.
Exactly. Yeah.
There were giant-ass mutant crabs, though, man. They were, like, half the size of the bodies.
They were kind of big, yeah.
Giant enemy crabs.
Like, the first 10 seconds of the game, I was very confused because it was Teddy is, he's crazy, basically. Yeah. And he's like,
but is he crazy?
You're going to... There might be a Teddy ending, but he's got to stop getting his legs torn up by crabs and blowing up in rogue fireworks explosions.
I only say that because, like, I did pursue a lot of the Teddy stuff, and they constantly gave me evidence that this was all just, like, set up.
I don't know. I did a Teddy run, but he blew up.
No, he never died.
Maybe drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit there, man.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
I let him die in the cave with the gas vapors, which was dumb because there were so many people that could have helped me, and they were all just like, nope, we can't help you pull people out.
I never had the gas vapors thing. I left for like a day, and then when I came back, Jolene was like, hey, did you get the food? And I was like, nah. And Teddy died. And then she's like, oh, everybody in the cave died too. And I was like, and she's like, yeah, volcanic gas vapors or something like that. And I was like,
I ate
weird.
them all, don't worry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jolene she was wiping like barbecue sauce from her lips.
They all died. Mysterious vapors.
It's fun. I like it. I recommend it.
I think it's worth playing, and even if it seems like we've spoiled things, it's not like that. It's not like we just gave you the ending of like The Walking Dead season 1 or something like that, or The Wolf Among Us. It's the fun of the game is in seeing it kind of unfold. And then I really like the presentation at the end is really slick when they give you the newspaper with whoever survived, and then
too.
like they give you the option to like upload it directly to Steam and share it with your friends. Like that stuff is cool. Yeah. I kind of wish they had like a Telltale style stat screen at the end. Like that would actually make me more likely to play it through in the future. It'd be like, oh, 90% of people made this decision. You were in the huge minority. I mean, what's wrong with these guys?
You know, one thing that would have really been interesting to me is if there was actually maybe 20 total characters and it randomly picked a group of them when you started.
That'd be cool too.
Yeah.
Like
Different
This War of
attributes
Mine
lead to
style.
different experiences.
Was Dyscourse kickstarted?
Yeah, I made like 45,000 on Kickstarter, I think.
Because I remember when I started playing, I'm like, this looks really familiar, and I don't know why.
Also, I'm aware adding 20 characters would be so fucking much work.
Oh, I
Just
can
going,
imagine.
Oh
That
yeah.
would be nuts. Just saying.
At
Pie
the
in the
same
sky
time,
idea.
right? It doesn't make it an invalid criticism at the same time.
Right.
Discourse is in not early access. I dare not apply that label where it does not see fit to do so. $15.
There is more content coming though.
Yes, yeah, that's what it was. The Indie Island, whatever it's called, that
Which I
is
think
on the
is
way.
going to be free. I thought that was like part of the draw of it. Was that like if we hit this stretch goal, we can do this for free?
I'm pretty sure it's going to be free. Yeah, they're making it so it's not just backer exclusive either. Like everybody that buys the game is going to be able to do it. So that's
Special edition DLC is $10. What is this?
It comes with like a 70-song soundtrack.
Okay, that's nothing big then. I think as in like
lot
it's
of
not
songs.
it's not story just locked.
No, it's not more DLC as far as I know. Or I mean, it is literally DLC, but it's not more content. It's
Wallpaper, music, art book. Got
like
it.
a really long soundtrack, I think.
Cool. All right, cool.
So real quick, because I know that Bloodborne's probably going to take up a good chunk of discussion time too. I did want you guys to touch on Pillars of Eternity. I know Mathas and Ryan have both had their fair share.
I probably played more than Ryan at this point.
Wow, bragging about it.
Well, Ryan said he stopped because he's right. There's a lot of good stuff that came out over the course of like 2 weeks. So
You may or may not have played more than me, but I'm very confident you've played more productively than me. I played through like the first 3 hours twice, basically.
you might be further than me though still because I'm kind of taking my time.
Maybe.
So Pillars of
just finished
Eternity
up-
is the isometric RPG by Obsidian, makers of Fallout New Vegas, and published by Paradox. I think, did we say this earlier in the show, or was this beforehand? We were saying, like, Paradox is making some bank.
Mad
right now.
money.
They're doing real well right now. A lot of the developers that worked on this were part of the old Black Isle studio, part of the old CRPG, Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter, Icewind Dale, Planescape Torment. Like those developers worked on this game, and it shows. It shows. It's really, really harkens back to those types of games, which is great.
I'm going to basically say my piece and get out of the way. Because we're coming at this from two different perspectives.
We are.
I am a non-classic RPG player. The only Baldur's Gate game I ever played was Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, the like action RPG for
PS2
PS2. It was pretty good, though.
No, I never.
Dark Alliance was still all right. And I didn't play Divinity last year. So I'm coming at this from like a total layman's perspective. It's one of those it's almost like looking at like a really big book on like a library shelf or something like that. And then you read like 30, 40 pages and you're like, I could really see investing like a lot of time into this and getting like like a lot of rewards out of this. And like if I invested myself, I could really get a lot in return.
Silmarillion.
Exactly. It is. It's a little bit like Silmarillion.
Yeah.
Like this is a perfect analogy, actually. It's like I played Dragon Age Inquisition in November, and then I was like, I want to play more RPGs. It's like reading Lord of the Rings and being like, I want to know more of this universe. And then I picked up the Silmarillion, and I was like, oh, like I'm not ready for this shit. Are you crazy? So yeah, I played like 3 hours. It was very difficult for me. I played on normal at first, and basically like hit a wall because they don't really give you that much guidance about where you should be. They kind of tell you where to go, but they don't. There's no like be like level 6 before you come here. It's just like, you need to get here and kill the king, or you need to get here and like meet this guy. And I like was just beating my head against a wall. Like I would have a good first 2 hours destroying enemies, getting a little bit better at micromanaging my party and stuff like that, and then it would fall apart. I'd hit a wall and I just could not get past it. Like I would fight an enemy for like an hour, lose, and then just be like, well, I got to restart.
What was the last thing you did?
What's up, Kate?
Hey, Kate.
Hi, Kate.
How's it going, Kate?
Hey. She's
Would you
in
like
all
a
of our
spoon?
rooms at the same time.
Kate.
Would you like a spoon? Well then, okay. How's it going?
Good. How was the podcast?
It's going well so far.
So far, I think we're having a good time. Yeah.
Okay.
There's still some time in it.
Alright.
All right.
Love you.
I love you too.
This is an important part of the show for everyone. I think.
Every episode.
Every
yeah.
episode, right?
So in my first game, these are very, very, very early game spoilers for people who are
This
concerned
game is
about
long
this.
as fuck. So
It's gonna be like 80 hours long. This is like 2 or 3 hours in.
Yeah.
In my first game, I got a few party members. I got to like the Gilded Vale, is that what it's called? The first big
the
area
town.
with like the town. And then I went east to
Did you do anything in
Cade.
the town?
Yeah, I did a quest where I like went down to the Anslog's compass and made the potion for the girl's sister.
All right. So
It's a really easy side quest basically to get it like a level,
And then you
yeah, I got like a party of 4, party of 3 maybe, and then I went east to Caidna.
Yeah.
Caidna.
Yeah, that's where
Yeah.
that's where my target is right now. But I've been doing so much shit in the little town.
Okay, so I went there and you get like another party member, and then you fight a bunch of like phantoms, way too strong for me. So I was like, all right, I'm not supposed to be here. I started another character. My first character was a ranger, and I wasn't feeling it because then like the first few people I got were all like not tanky at all. So I started with
That face.
That's not true. That's
that
not true at
face
all.
is telling us.
you can. There are different party members you can get. Like,
right. That's the other thing that's deceptively old school about the game. Like they hide party members for you. You have to stumble upon
if you
them.
don't talk
Pirate
to like
party
some.
members.
The first time that I did something in the town, I talked to like I got a magician, like a wizard.
They hand that
companion.
to you. But that's like
You can't not get that one.
Yeah.
But then there's another guy in the town who is like a paladin, maybe I can't remember. Some guy, he's a paladin or a fighter. I
the
can't
guy
remember.
near the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's very tanky.
Yeah, but I didn't get him the first time because I didn't. talk to him.
Oh. Okay.
Like I talked to him once and he was like, "Hey there, partner," and then I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah,
"What did you
it's
say
very
to me?" And he's like, "Oh, never mind." So I was like, "Oh,
was
what's
like,
up with this
really?
guy?"
You have to go back to him a later time, and then he's like,
Okay.
"All right, we'll
Well,
talk."
The fuck
The
did you
second-
just say to me?
Basically,
You know?
the second character I made, I did get that guy because I didn't talk to him at first. Because at first I was like, "This guy's a piece of shit. I don't want to talk to him again." And then when I walked out, he's like, "Hey, stranger, like, I hear you need help or something like that." Anyway, so I got him that time, and I made a fighter class that was tankier. And then I did like way more side questing, and then there's like the first main quest thing is like you got to kill King Raedric or whatever his name is.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, go to the stronghold. At first, I went back to Caidna, and I lost to the Phantoms again on easy mode. So I was like, oh shit, I'm really not supposed to be here. And then I went to the stronghold. I got my ass kicked in the stronghold, and I was like, this game's not. It's very deliberately for
Did you do a
people
lot
that
of
play
pausing
those.
at all? Did you do a lot of pausing?
I did. First time I played through the game or played much of the early game, I barely paused. It was a poor decision. Took advice from people. You got to be micromanaging your party every few seconds.
Yeah.
I was doing it, still getting my ass kicked. I don't think it's a problem with the game. I think it's a game that's clearly targeting people who have some affinity or at least enough interest in getting an affinity for the genre that they can get over what's a relatively high learning curve. I think.
It is. It's a really high learning curve. It's incredibly deep. Like if anybody played Divinity, you thought if Divinity was deep.
I was gonna say it sounds like the
No.
beginning of it is kind of Divinity-esque, where
It's-
it plops you down as like, go have fun.
So the thing is, in Divinity, like just to kind of get an idea for those who haven't played Divinity, making a character is relatively easy. You pick a class, you don't even pick a race. You're a human, I think, automatically in Divinity. You pick a couple of spells, and you're basically done with your character. It's a 20-minute process, maybe, if you're really like taking your time. And that's for 2 characters. You make 2 characters. In Pillars, you're making 1 character. but it's like an hour process if you're being like good about it. You have to pick a race. There are 6 races. Each race has anywhere between 2 to 5 subtypes. Each of those subtypes have bonuses to certain abilities and stats. You then pick one of 11 different classes. Each class could have anywhere between 5 to 11 different decisions you have to make. If you pick a wizard, you need to pick 4 first-level spells, of which you can only fit 4 of any particular level spell in your spell book before you need a new spell book to put more spells in. So make sure your spells that you're picking are good. On top of that, you need to pick your class. After you pick your class, you need to distribute your stats. If you play Dungeons and Dragons, it's the basic 6 stats: strength, dex, con, willpower. In this game, it's it's willpower in the game. Otherwise, it's intelligence, charisma, and something else. So six of those stats you need to distribute the points they give you for that. Each one of those, depending on where you put them, will lock away certain decisions you have within the game. You'll have skill checks. So say, for instance, you find this wall and you want to climb the wall. Well, you have to have a might of 14 to climb the wall, otherwise you fail. Did you have enough might when you made your character? Do you have 14 might? Do you not have 14 might? There's a lot of character building that goes into just building your stats. And then after that, you pick your initial talents, of which are unique to depending on the class that you picked. So building a character is crazy.
With the amount of things that you just described, that sounded like an endless bunch of branching paths. Do they really make an appreciable difference in the way that the game plays out? Because that sounds like it would be impossible to implement all of that.
So when I played through the opening about 4 or 5 different times, because I made 4 or 5 different classes before I decided what I wanted to. Each time I played through the opening, it went differently for me. Wow. I would go through the opening, and they give you 2 partners in the beginning that are like tutorial partners. I've gone through the opening where they both survive. I've gone through the opening where they both...
What? There's an opening where they both make it to the Gilded Vale with you?
No. Get to past the cave tutorial.
Okay.
I've had it where one die within the cave tutorial, the other one dies within the cave tutorial. They both die. They abandon you. Depending on your choices that you make, will totally determine on what happens. In my most recent the most recent mission I did, I actually reloaded it because I didn't like the decisions I made, and the quest outcome was totally different because I chose different things. And certain decisions are locked away behind bars, so you need like a 15 resolve to be able to make this decision. But I don't have 15 resolve, but I have a 15 might, so I can be a brute if I want to and beat him up instead, and that will have different implications immediately and further on down the line. Say if he lives, then he escapes. It's very text heavy though. That's the thing. There's a lot of reading involved.
Sunless Sea Levels?
More so. Way more?
Probably a lot.
Way more so than Sunless Sea.
Yeah, it's had me for a second with the character development thing, but that
draws you in, really. That's I think that's the first threshold
so
that
ambitious.
I can't.
It's old school.
Yeah.
It's super old school. And I love it for that because I grew up on that stuff. I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons for like over 10, 11 years. I grew up playing Baldur's Gate and all these things. So this kind of text-based RPG is something I'm used to, and I think that's where the barrier is going to be, right? Divinity is for the people who want to experience a CRPG but don't want to deal with the bullshit that came before it. Like what made
Divinity is like the gateway CRPG for people.
Right. If you want to play a CRPG but you don't want to deal with the stuff that existed 10 years ago, you play Divinity. But if you are craving that depth, then you play Pillars, because Pillars, on top of having all this decision, they've built this world from the ground up with thousands of years of history that is in the game for you to read. I've already spent like an hour and a half just reading books that I found, learning about the world, why these empires exist, why they've broken away, why this particular little town that we're in, Gilded Vale, is the way it is. Did you even read about the God War that happened there and why they're independent?
No.
Ryan? Yeah, see, like
surprise.
Yeah, like there's so much. There's a reason like the town is so angry and like they're killing everybody and like Hollowborns and all this stuff. Did you know what a Hollowborn is, Ryan?
Yes, I played.
Did you read about the guy who put an animal soul in his daughter?
No.
Like, there's all kinds of crazy stuff that happens.
Alchemist.
I really feel like Pillars of Eternity, it's not a fair comparison to compare it to Dragon Age Inquisition.
It's not. It's totally different.
But I feel like Pillars of Eternity is like PhD level like statics engineering textbook. And what I need was something that bridged the gap between statics engineering for dummies, which is what Dragon Age Inquisition was, and then statics engineering for geniuses. I should have played Divinity in the interim period. Because Pillars, right? The way I feel about Pillars is the same way I felt about Crusader Kings 2 when I first started playing it, which was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I hear the stories of how awesome this game is, and I believe that they exist. I just need to get there. And it took like 80 hours to get there. And I was like, I don't know if without guidance I can get those 80 hours out of Pillars first. Or it's probably less for Pillars, maybe like 30 hours before I have like some solid footing underneath me. I don't know if I'm going to get it, which is not saying the game is bad at all. It's more like this is great, but like completely inaccessible to me.
But you're right. It's really hard, too. It's incredibly difficult. I mean, if you're not used to these tactical battles, you're going to get your ass whooped over and over and over again.
In the review guide, they're like, okay, so easy is normal. You should play on easy. You should only play on normal if you have like experience.
Right.
And then there's like super hard. And I was like, okay, but like, where's easy? If easy's normal, what does someone who should be playing on easy play at?
There's infant baby mode
Divinity.
where you just let the game play itself.
Exactly. I need like the casual mode where like the enemies just don't do damage to you.
Yeah.
Like I
Call
need
it
that
Luigi.
for like
Because
exactly,
in the
Luigi
game,
will
there's
save you.
in Pillars of Eternity, there's friendly fire, and you can't turn that off.
Man, then that's the thing that gets me is people are like, you probably have your it's pretty easy. Just micromanage your party. And I'm like, okay, so I'm going to put my wizard at the front because all of his shit has friendly fire with it.
Terrible idea.
And then I put the wizard at the front, he gets his ass kicked. Then I put the wizard at the back, and I'm like, flame cone! And he lights, like, all of the fighters in front of him on fire. And I'm like, ah. So I'm like, so instead I have, like, this weird party setup where I'd have, like, 3 fighters, and then I'd micro my wizard and, like, run him around to the other side of the fight. And, yeah, he'd be like, flame cone! And then they would all swarm
I really
him.
like when you say flame.
I love it.
I just imagine that's how you think I sound when I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Again, I don't think it's badly
Or when I
designed.
lost. Or when I lost.
Fireball.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the new player, it is hard to understand. For me, it's hard to understand. I shouldn't speak for all new players. I do think it's one of those things where if you are looking to get into CRPGs, I don't think it did for me what I needed it to do, which is hold my hand.
I don't think this is what that's supposed to be either. I mean, I think it's definitely set in its laurels of people funded this to be the masochistic, like, unforgiving experience that people that are used to these sort of games want.
They
And
wouldn't
coming
have
from
put up so much friction if not for that. Like, they obviously embrace that very specific demographic because, you mentioned all the reading and the difficulty. Those are huge walls that would drive a lot of people away.
It is. I mean, at Paradox Con, me, Quill, and Arumba were in the group together, and when we got to the Pillars thing, it was just like an hour of us just asking them like little nitpicky questions about damage reduction and percentile damages and all the stuff that we grew up with. But at the same time, it's hard for you, and coming from somebody who grew up with these games, I see something a little different where it's not as hard as Baldur's Gate. The game has a lot of leeway to let you do what you want to do. There were a lot of times in the old games like Fallout 1 and 2 where you could get locked in a point in the game where you could not progress because you leveled up your character incorrectly. They don't allow that to happen in this. There's a lot more leeway for you to be who you want to be, and that's something I'm having a really good time with too, where I'm playing this character that I want to play, who is this stoic badass paladin who will do everything but kill you, and I can do that, and the game doesn't punish me for that.
I like to imagine that the people that funded this probably weren't investing in it with the idea of I really hope that they put in those elements that literally prevent me from progressing. That was my favorite part of Baldur's Gate.
But that happened. Like, that happened in the old school days where if you didn't have the right stats and you got 3/4 of the way through the game and you came, I think a good example that they used in an article I read recently, which is if you came up to this door that you couldn't pick, you didn't have the mental prowess to pick the lock or the strength to break down the door, you were fucked because you needed to get through that door to progress the game. And that was the end, done. In this game, there are skill checks they present in text where you have to break through the wall or whatever, and you have many different options. There's always an option that's going to work, but there might be penalties for using the easiest option. For instance, break down a wall. I don't have the might to do it. I don't have the tools to do it. I can shoulder my way through this thing eventually. what ends up happening is you get through it, but now all your characters are fatigued and doing less damage until you rest. And I think that's a good workaround from just fucking you over completely in the game.
It's like the pile of rubble in Dankest Dungeon. Like, if you have a way through it, if you bring a shovel, you're fine.
I guess where I'm coming from is not that the game should be accessible, but that you're going into it under the impression that you're like, I'm going to be into CRPGs now. This might not be the best jump.
Really stereotypical voice to use for people trying to get into the genre.
Dude, that's me. That's so.
If you want to get into CR, I'm telling you, Divinity was an amazing game, and it has that super easy barrier to entry. You can just jump in, have fun. It looks great. It plays great. It's really good. And then if you want to go to the next step where you really start wanting to kind of get into the lore of the world and a more serious story and something that allows you a lot more detail, Pillars is the game for you. And it's there. Like I said, I've probably spent, I think I have like 6 or 7 hours in the game so far in this current playthrough that I'm playing, and I'm still in Gilded Vale. I haven't finished all the quests, and I'm reading everything because the world is interesting. Did you go down to that dungeon in Gilded Vale, like in that area? Did you clear it?
I got to this is what I was asking you. Like, could you not have gotten into the game like 4 days earlier than you did? And then I would be right there with you, man. I'd have like 35 hours in it. I was like, man, I come to this puzzle with like some bells. Yeah. But I've got all the flavor text from the area, and I still can't figure out what order to hit the bells in.
Did you know that you can see secret things just by hitting the Alt button and go into sneak mode, and your characters will spot secret things?
I did not know that, no.
So, yeah, you can go into, like, sneak mode, and your characters will see little hidden switches that'll open up secret rooms that'll have pieces of paper. But they give you a little...
would tell you that.
Yeah, good thing enough doing a series on this, right?
The 2 hints they give you is, like, the right bell has to be the first and the last bell to ring. Okay. So you have to find out the combination of right bell, then one of, like, what order the other 2 bells go in, and then the right bell again, and the door opens. The second floor, though, is all shades. So you wouldn't...
Okay.
But I didn't have any problem with the shades. Like, I beat the shades with a 3-party party, but it's all.
You know what? It reminds me a little bit of like when you tell people to start playing like EU4 or CK2.
Oh yeah.
You're like, okay, there's like 100 different mechanics, but you don't really need to know. If you're just going to be like military, usually big number beats smaller number.
Yeah.
Pillars of Eternity is like that, except it's like, no, you have to pay attention to every single number. Like, even we were talking about like character creation takes forever.
It does.
Which is
fun,
great. Exactly. and there's a ton of lore. There's a ton of reading. Then you get into combat. You've got to pause combat like every couple of seconds to issue orders to your people. In combat, it's not just like, you know, Thoric hits Barbarian for 10 damage. It's like Thoric glances Barbarian for 10 blunt damage. And like then the Barbarian has damage reduction to a specific kind of damage. And then they'll...
Yeah.
There's hits, crits, glances, and misses, and then there's like thrust damage,
6
blunt
damage.
And yeah, exactly. So
that's not even talking about like elemental stuff, right? That's all just the physical sorts of damage.
Yeah, it's just physical. Magic is a totally different beast. That is crazy, but go ahead.
They'll have like a combat log, which will be the size of like a normal chat window for an online multiplayer game. And then when your character swings, a number will pop up over the guy. It'll be like 6, let's say. The combat log sometimes will scroll further than you can actually read in one. Like for that one hit, there will be like more of a description than it's not just like hits for 7 damage. It's like glances for 7 damage, damage reduction, blah blah blah. You know, Barbarian is stunned for 0.49 seconds, and then like it actually is. It's crazy.
You can't hide the like auxiliary damage stat stuff and just get to like the most important.
I think you could ignore the combat log or even hide the combat log, but then if you run into problems, you're going to be like, what am I doing wrong? Right. And it's almost like debugging a program. You're like, okay, here's the problem. This guy's like,
go that far.
This guy's missing like all this time, and then you go look at the enemy's stats and you're like, oh, I fought this enemy 4 times, so I've learned that he has damage reduction against like lightning attacks or something like that. And then you're like, okay, reconfigure like my grimoire so it's not lightning.
One things to do is the more you encounter a particular type of monster, the more information you learn about that monster in your log, so you can look at that monster and know, all right, next time I fight this monster, he's weak against this, he takes DR against that, but not so much DR against that. Here's a strategy I want to use when I come against this particular monster.
I'm getting the impression, this is obviously hyperbole, but I'm almost getting where like you see your combat log, it's like, all right, you popped out the number 6. The rest of tonight is going to be me figuring out how much damage I did, and tomorrow I will do another attack.
I mean, I don't want to...
You're like playing an overseas chess game by mail, right?
That's what I'm getting the impression of. I know it's not really that, but it's just that's what my head...
Honestly, it's and I could sit here and talk about it all day. And like again, like Ryan said, like physical damage is totally different than magic, and magic is its own system completely that you kind of have to just. It's not hard to learn, but you have to understand. There's like spells you can use per encounter and per rest, and then you have to really like strategize. And if you suffer from too good to use syndrome too often, you never want to use your good spells because you won't have them until the next time you rest. So you kind of have to pick the good times to use them. And if you fuck up, like I did once where I had this beam of fire that was shooting from my guy's hand, I didn't realize it hit everything in its path. So I had basically come to this choke point where I was feeding the enemies into this choke point. I had my 2 warriors sitting at the doorway fighting the monsters as they came. And I had my wizard in the back, and I just did this beam of fire right through the door, and it just set my 2 dudes right on fire. And it was a long beam. It wasn't like the burst cone. It was just a ray, but the ray lasted like 3, 4,
Flame
5
cone.
seconds. And yeah, flame beam. And it's like, it killed everybody.
There's permadeath as well. Like sometimes your dudes will faint. Sometimes your dudes will die.
There's 2 different types of damage, endurance and health damage. Now, unless you turn on permadeath, you can still bring them back via resurrection, but it costs money.
Oh, I didn't get that far.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean it's a difficult thing to kind of understand. But when you get into it, like it's so rewarding.
I feel like
that's the trade-off, right? Like the more time you put in, the more rewarding it is. And I hope nobody's getting the impression I'm just like calling you guys nerds because I don't get into it. It's nothing like that. I like plenty of this stuff.
It's a particular audience they were going for, and they drove it home. And
it's like the difference between like a casual person like buying a car and like indie
enthusiast
car
going in,
Sure.
exactly.
Yep, I get it.
Like the normal person is just like, I want a Toyota, and then like some guy will be like, well, I want to have like this, flame cone, flame Corolla.
You go to your car dealership, flame cone.
And then some people want like, I need this new engine has been introduced and it's like it's got a bigger capacity than another engine and like blah blah blah. If you're the kind of person that can actually like take advantage of those systems, it is like probably one of the best games of the year. What this basically is like if we were a magazine, you would have Mathas review Pillars of Eternity. You wouldn't have me or Nick review Pillars of Eternity. It's a game for enthusiasts, and I think you should know that on the way in. Otherwise, like if I had spent $30 on it, I wouldn't say disappointed, but I wouldn't 45. Have gotten my money's worth.
Yeah.
A 45.
You wouldn't have gotten the game if you had spent $30.
Right.
That's what I know.
Well, if I could buy just the first 2/3, I still probably wouldn't have gotten my money's worth.
Yeah.
But
per hour.
If I think that's the kind of thing it's a paradox game. You're gonna get like 0 or 1 hour, or you're gonna get like 200.
Dude, they don't have like a demo, right?
No,
that seems like a really good thing for people to be able to just play the first half an hour or something.
Man, the first no, you need like the
first 2 hours.
2 hours, yeah. The first couple of hours, I think would be good, just to understand what it is. Because again, character creation alone is just—it's so deep. The fact, like, I can get. I'm not.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
We got it.
I think we got the idea.
Pillars of Eternity on Steam, $45 for the Hero Edition, $59.99 for the Champion Edition, and $90 for the Royal Edition. I won't get into the differences there. You can go check it out for yourself. Final game we want to discuss on today's show is the newest from.
Aha! Nice.
I didn't even mean to do that. It's BloodBorne. It's the it's the Dark Souls game that is not a Dark Souls game, but it is a Dark Souls game.
It's only not a Souls game because it's an exclusive, right? Like that's the idea.
I actually don't know. I mean, I think that's not fair to say.
There's a lot of different reasons why it might have been, and I spitballed with Rob. We don't know for sure.
All right.
Why?
So I thought it was because Sony was like, exclusive, here's money.
Yeah, if you haven't ever played a Dark Souls game, they're known for being brutally difficult. They are just, action games.
Action RPGs.
Yeah, our action RPG. There's a lot to it, but for the most part, you can just go through and just treat it like a good old beat 'em up, and you have a good time with it still. But
like an RPG,
right.
There are RPG elements, but I'd say it's more of an action game in that it's focused on the mechanics as opposed to leveling is important and equipment is very important, but the most important thing is just mechanical skill.
Right.
Yeah, it's dexterity driven, but not quite to the extent of something like Devil May Cry.
Right, yeah.
And this is perhaps the most dexterity driven of any of them, in my opinion. It seems like it really focuses a lot on straight up melee combat. There's not really a lot you can do with like fireballs and range spells. Are there even like range spells?
I don't think that
a gun.
there's magic.
Yeah, well, I mean, aside from the gun.
The gun isn't even a gun, really. The gun is basically a parry. And yet, like, the Devil May Cry comparison is more apt for Bloodborne because Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2, it was you could play them with like a dodge roll, like dual wield setup, and go like super offense heavy. But the way I played them, in a way I know a lot of people played them, was kind of like sword and board. Like, I have a shield, I keep my shield up at all times, except when I need to recover stamina, and then you wait for the enemy to tire themselves out and you hit them, or you parry them and then get a riposte. Bloodborne, you can't do that. Like, they have a shield, but the shield item is kind of a joke. You get it a little later, you probably like the earliest third of the game still, but a little later into that, and the shield is just awful. So it's kind of like an in-joke to be like, this isn't Dark Souls. It's aggressive or aggression based and like very offensive as opposed to being defense first. If you wanted to do that,
You and Nick have it. Bear, do you have it?
I don't know. I don't even have
Okay.
PS4.
Me either.
I'm
Have you or
horrible.
Nick, Ryan or Nick, have you beaten the game yet?
I have not.
no. I think I'm still in the first half probably.
I think I am too.
I think
Would
I've
you guys-
beaten 5 or 6 bosses.
So this is an important question I'm curious about. Is this a reason to buy a PS4, or is it only a reason to buy a PS4 because it's the only good game it has?
Oh, that's a loaded question.
Yeah.
If you have,
Honestly, though, is this like a system seller, do you think?
If you're the kind of person who will look at the PS4 right now and be like, "There's nothing but Bloodborne," you should probably never buy a PS4. Like that's like a $500 purchase almost for one game.
Yes.
I don't think that's
Uncharted.
worth it.
I think Uncharted is where it will
It's
be.
not
worth
out
it.
yet.
I'm saying,
So what's your question then is, like, if someone who hasn't wanted to buy a PS4 up to this point saw
Is this worth
Bloodborne,
it?
would they want to buy the system for it? Which probably
Correct.
the answer would be no, right?
no.
If you're buying a system for one game, I don't think there's any reason to buy to spend $500.
People buy systems for one game, though. Halo is an example of that.
Is
Sadly.
the more apt question, are you going to be
I know it's
disappointed if you bought a system for Bloodborne because you love the idea of Bloodborne? I feel like you probably wouldn't be.
That's a better question.
I think that if you know what you're getting into with Bloodborne, you will love it. Like, I haven't seen anybody that likes Dark Souls, specifically Dark Souls 1, be like, this is a disappointment.
Yeah, I'm a pretty cynical person when it comes to this stuff. I had a really good time with it.
This is the perspective I think I wanted to...
Go ahead.
It's what I wanted to hear that you and Rob actually were talking a little bit about it during the Magic game that we played pretty recently. Bloodborne is sort of the game that's trying to maybe take away the mindset that the Souls games have given to a lot of people, especially the general public, who perceive them as, there's no chance for me to be... or to have a good time playing this because it's way too difficult. I know that from everybody saying, like, don't play the Dark Souls games if you don't like games that are really, really hard. So, do you think Bloodborne is trying to become more of the, hey, don't be scared? It's like, come on now, young one, you can play Bloodborne, it's okay.
If that was the way that they were doing it, that's probably a bit of an odd way to do it, considering this might be one of the hardest.
I think Bloodborne is much harder than Dark Souls 2, at least.
Yeah, so that if that was their goal, that seems like a bad way to go about getting people involved. I mean, we could speculate for a while about reasons they might have done it, but I'm not really sure myself.
Could you not, like, you're presenting them every time you put them in your mouth. It's like, look what I got.
You're showing off.
I don't think any game is worth $450 is what I'm trying to get at here. Bloodborne, it's irresponsible of me to say how much I like it, but like it's probably, as of right now, one of the best games I've played in the last 3 or 4 years.
Better than Dark Souls 2?
I can't say it because I haven't beaten it, and I have a little chip on my shoulder with Dark Souls 2 to begin with, which is not fair. But I do appreciate that Bloodborne is a much fresher approach than Dark Souls 2. Like, Dark Souls 2 is like an iteration on Dark Souls. Bloodborne is its own thing that is like very clearly a Souls game, but not a Souls game.
It's really a close Souls game. I mean, they just kind of have analogs for a lot of the systems in Souls. Like, you know, bonfires are now lanterns.
Souls are blood
echoes, so on and so forth. It still has similar structure too.
The systems are very similar, but it is, you couldn't, if this came out and was Dark Souls 3, I think people, I mean, they wouldn't have a negative reaction to it, but they'd be like, this is weird. Like, this is much, it's different enough that I think it warrants a rebranding, I guess, but.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. And thematically, it's a bit of a departure. If they tried to position it within the mythology of it and like made some sort of an effort toward that, I think they could have gotten away with it, but I'm totally fine with them doing this too. I mean, it just seems like the easier path, honestly.
I'm assuming because Dark Souls 1 and 2 both had really hidden but deep lore, the same thing applies for Bloodborne. Like there's a hidden
I won't know.
Yet.
I won't know until Epic Name Bro does like his videos. It seems like there has been some crazy stuff. I don't want to spoil it. This is a game that I'm actually like a little bit more protective about spoilers.
Yeah,
but there's been some shit that has happened to me in Bloodborne where I've been like, I need to know what's happening here. Like
Really? Okay.
like in this is the most minor spoiler. I'm going to tackle it in a very indirect way. In Dark Souls 1, when you go to the Duke's Archives, there's that fight against Seath that you have to lose, and then it kind of like gates you within the Duke's Archives when you wake up. There is shit like that happens in Bloodborne that comes out of nowhere, basically, and is like this is crazy. Like I can't really get into more detail about it. I don't know, Nick. You might have gotten to this point, or you might not have.
I haven't.
You'll see it, I'm sure. But like the game gets pretty insane, but I still have no idea really what's going on. I would have had any idea what's going on in Dark Souls 1 or 2 without the help of other content creators who read. And it's different because in Dark Souls 1 and 2, the loading screens have item descriptions that contain lore, so you can't help but kind of at least get some of it environmentally. In this, the loading screen just says Bloodborne. So
and it lasts for 40 seconds or some shit.
There are
They're working on it.
There are
Whatever.
two.
Oh, they are working on it?
Objective problems with Bloodborne that give all of the fodder that people who are really, really adamant about PC gaming can latch onto. The frame rate is 30 with dips, which dips? I don't even really notice except when it dips. Like being at 30, I think it's the kind of thing where I only notice it if it's up against 60. Like playing Dark Souls 2 on 360 versus PC, I notice a difference. Playing Bloodborne on PS4, I don't really notice, but if I'd ever played it at 60, I probably would. And the loading times are actually borderline unacceptable.
Third one is the camera at times can actually get you killed.
Yes, it's got a Dark Souls camera.
Gotcha.
I'm
not gonna
Dark
lie.
Souls 1, when you walk up the flying buttress, and that's like the most dangerous part of the whole game.
Yes.
Step one, when you load up the game, turn off the thing that makes the camera bounce around walls. Just have it clip through the walls. It's so much better. You'll not have as many problems.
At least they have that option. That's nice.
Yeah,
that's good. I adored Dark Souls 1. I loved it. I played it from start to finish. Took me a couple tries to get into it, but once I got into it, I loved it. Dark Souls 2, I never beat. I liked it. But isn't the guy who did or directed Dark Souls 1, he didn't direct Dark Souls 2, but he did direct Bloodborne? Isn't that how it went?
Yeah.
Correct.
I'm not going to lie. I really want to play Bloodborne, and I'm getting weaker to the idea of buying a PS4 just to play Bloodborne at some point. I don't know if I want to. I'm still I'm at that edge. I want to, but I don't know if I can justify spending the money to do it.
There's not going to be other games eventually.
I know I'm
I
going to want
take the
Uncharted.
opposite approach. I think if you're a PC gamer and if you're like, I'm going to buy a PS4 for Bloodborne, go for it. But if you're like, I'm hemming and hawing, you can survive just fine with just PC gaming. But
I'm gonna get
the
a
catch is
PS4
you're going to miss
eventually.
out on the console exclusives.
I'm going to get a PS4 eventually because it has the console exclusives that I'm eventually going to want, which is going to be Uncharted, which is going to be more Infamous. Those are the ones I want. Xbox I'll probably never touch because I don't care about Halo.
Mine's a
and,
big
Sunset.
old paperweight over here right now.
Dude, Master Chief, Halo Chief, I almost
Halo
Master
Chief.
Chief might have betrayed us. Did you hear? Oh.
Yeah. Well, there was 2 different commercials, all right, man. 2 different commercials.
I was like, I don't care.
Hey, don't buy Halo 5. I'm going to use this as a freaking outlet to say
don't
that.
pre-order
Don't
it. Don't
fucking
pre-order
buy
it.
it till you know it works.
Don't pre-order it at least.
I want at the same time. I also want to stream it really badly, like Bloodborne. But
That's the annoying part.
is the built-in streaming on the PS4 is it good, bad, meh?
It's suboptimal compared to PC, but you don't need any extra hardware if you have a USB mic. But you'd probably rather just get a capture card and stream it on your PC.
Yeah, that's.
I had a lot of fun with that. Mine died. I was trying to stream it. I did 3 hours of troubleshooting, and then I bought another one. It was 3 hours to set that one up. But now I'm good. I can stream console games again.
The long and the short of it is that we can't really talk that much about. I feel like Bloodborne is one of those games that it's best to talk about as almost like a postmortem when like everybody has finished it, because until then
secrets have been divulged.
There's so much ambiguous stuff and so much nebulous stuff. But I'm having a great time with it. I'm deliberately kind of parceling it into smaller chunks for myself to play as opposed to mainlining the whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That's a personal preference. I've seen that there's people who's like 100% of the game already on stream. I'm like, that's fine.
A bunch of people have.
There's nothing wrong with that, but I want to like.
Well, you're taking a different approach as well. You're not doing a series on it. You're not streaming
going
it.
to if I can
Okay.
have like a freaking 2-day period where I can rest my voice and recover from this illness.
Sorry.
But yeah,
Well, what can you do?
the PS4 thing is like it's almost like a tautology. I feel like I play my PS4 a lot because I own a PS4.
I just wish it was coming to PC.
There's a little bit of dishonesty in that argument because I've seen so much like exclusivity is the cancer that's killing the video game industry. I've seen that rhetoric so much about Bloodborne, but when there's a game that's exclusive to PC, it's just business as usual. And I'm not trying to support exclusivity in the industry at all. I'm just saying I only really see it when there's a game that's not coming to
I don't
PC.
support exclusivity at all. I don't want exclusivity, period. But I
I think
understand.
you just meant both.
I just mean I don't think it should be, and then it's not really a double standard, but like I've seen, it's because Bloodborne is such a huge game, and the previous Souls games eventually made it to PC.
Yeah, this one's definitely not.
Almost certainly not. Yeah,
It's like going to
if
be like a
Demon's
Demon
Souls hasn't made it to PC yet, then I'm assuming
Demon's
Bloodborne.
Souls, yeah.
Anyway, like I take issue with the rhetoric that it's like, you know, if Rebirth was PC exclusive, people just would have been just like, I don't see a problem with that. But because Bloodborne is PS4 exclusive, there's a lot of people who are up in arms about it. And it would be better if everything was not exclusive, but at the same time, it's like the YouTube and Twitch thing that we were talking about. It's a way that companies can actually be competitive with one another and like create differences between them. You know, it's business. I would rather play Bloodborne on PC for sure. If they can make a 60 FPS PC version of Bloodborne.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
And
That's what it's for me.
connectivity actually worked. And then, I mean, that's my argument is a little dishonest as well. It would be better on PC.
That's
Like,
just true. Like I know people argue, but like it's just
would be
better
the-
hardware.
Yeah.
That's and if they didn't port it over with 60 frames a second, the next day there'd be a mod that allowed 60 frames a second. So,
And the online still does not work for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Man.
I don't know if that's just my region or whatever. It's not like I live in a city that has, you know,
live in
2.5.
Canada, man.
I have 2.5 million people in my city, and then I live 3 hours away from a city that has 5 million people. And like, yeah, and like pretty close to Japan, all things considered as well. But anyway, I have never had a non-AI co-op person.
I just stayed offline because I heard there were issues. I just wanted to play by myself because I figure I have more fun that way anyway.
Is the multiplayer basically the same as the Souls, where you summon somebody in to help you kind of thing?
The difference with co-op summoning is that you, instead of humanity, you have something called insight, and you ring a bell, which basically signals that you want help, but you don't lose insight when the person joins, you lose insight when you ring the bell. So even if nobody joins, you lose that resource that you have to have to fuel the co-op.
Interesting.
It's a weird design choice.
Is there an invasion mechanic?
Yeah, I've never been invaded, but I know how to invade.
There's also like a deliberate co-op, I believe, right? Like you can put in some sort of instance thing that lets you connect to another person you know.
I don't know that, actually.
Pretty sure there is. Somebody told me there's like a thing on the main menu you can do. I didn't figure it out yet.
And how cool would it be is if you ring the bell, you are opening the doors to either an invasion or a co-op help. You don't know what you're going to get.
That's like how humanity works.
Basically, Crazy Mike.
Yeah.
Shout out to Crazy Mike.
Yeah. So, I wanted to mention, too, like, I've been a pretty big critic of Dark Souls 2. I'm not going to go into that now, but I do want to say that I feel like a lot of the issues that I had with that are not present in this. The level design feels fantastic to me, and that's the one thing that I was really, really excited to see. It's sprawling, it's complex, it's got interconnectivity in ways that I wouldn't expect, and it looks beautiful the whole time. So
if you have a problem with Dark Souls 2 being like linear bonfire to bonfire, Bloodborne is more like Dark Souls 1 in that there's like one bonfire is used for multiple different kind of like purposes.
Awesome. That's cool.
And it's unexpected the way that it goes. Like, you don't really know where you're going to end up from one
I
moment
don't
to the
know
next.
about that. Like, the way that it is kind of transparent, at least in the early game. Like, you'll get to a lantern, and then there will be, like, an open gate and a closed gate. And then you go to the closed gate, and it's like, you can't open it from this side.
Well, I guess I just mean...
I wonder what's going to happen there.
No, that's pretty transparent. I mean, more specifically, the zones feel odd to me. Like, I don't expect where I'm going to end up next.
That's true, yeah.
Without citing specific examples, I guess I'm just sort of saying stuff, but...
Man, I want it.
BloodBorne is a PS4 exclusive, available now. If you have a PlayStation 4, unlike Mathas, then you can play it. But if you don't, then you can't. Ha. I'm contractually obliged to say this. Thank you for watching Roundtable podcast this fortnight.
It's a fun
Appreciate
one.
Yeah, this is we went a
no
little
Nick's
over
Weird
time
Games.
tonight. Oh, we're doing Nick's Weird
Nick's Weird
Games. That's right.
Games.
Yeah. Oh goodness, I nearly forgot. That's
What
the
you
most
doing over there,
important
man?
Go grab us the Nick's Weird Games, and I'm gonna request. How about like a Randy Newman? How about like a Randy Newman?
No, we
You got
have
a
an
friend
official.
in me cover of the Nick's Weird Games.
I wanted the punk version to be the official version.
You can't just fucking
No, they
spring that
can't.
on me
Yeah,
right now,
fuck
man.
you,
That's
Nick's Weird Games.
that's
See, you
planned ahead
said-
kind of stuff.
I was gonna make a request this time and hope for like a police rendition, very like rock reggae.
Well,
mix.
we're running out of time, so let's let him do something.
A week has passed since we played Weird Games. He's gonna grab one right from the shelf. Only Nick can bring us together. Nick will save our show, but Nick will break our hearts.
Thank you.
Bringing a weird game to the show. He's bringing a weird game to the show. All right.
That was fun.
That was
Yeah, I
beautiful.
love the police. Oh,
Honestly, I think that the transition is more important than the game at this
It is.
point. But all right, I've got another weird game for you today. It is going to be another PS2 game. I'm very curious to know if you guys, any of you, are familiar with this or have even heard of it before. It was published by Atlas. This is called Baroque.
Seen it, don't know what it does.
Baroque.
Don't know what it does.
I don't know what it does. Fuck you.
What happened?
All right, so Mathas, if you were to look at this title, take a guess at what it does.
God, it's Atlas, so it could do anything. It's Atlas. My guess would be some sort of weird beat 'em up. With
Not entirely off.
With the bizarre like range mechanic that has to do with him throwing his ball around.
No,
what I
he
got.
doesn't throw his ball around to the best of my ability. So I haven't played this in a few years, but I do have some experience with it. This is an action RPG, almost kind of roguelike, actually, in this case, where you're going to explore a tower that is somewhat procedurally generated, and every time you get through it, you're going to try and save an item for your next run, because when you die, all your stuff's reset. It unlocks
Rogue
new
Legacy.
NPCs.
Yo,
Yeah.
you guys want
What?
to freak out?
What?
What's up?
You know who developed Baroque?
Oh God.
You?
Sting.
No way.
What?
Sting Entertainment.
No way. Yes. Perfect
That's
musical
fucking
intro
weird,
for
man.
that. That's awesome.
Wow.
That's so cool.
They didn't know what I was going to pull.
God
You
damn,
didn't do that on
Sting.
purpose, though.
No.
That's amazing.
I knew
Sting
today
Smash
when I woke up, I was like, this is the game I'm going to pull out for the show. So that was a really weird coincidence.
Huh.
Wow.
Swear to God, we didn't plan that.
It's like Ryan called. What we do is we do the podcast first before we actually do the podcast.
Oh, yeah. That's right. We like to block out 6 hours of our day to do this show.
Yeah, right.
I mean, if
Go
we
through
talk
the-
about more Paradox games, we're
We
going to
do,
work
we
it out.
do
Yeah,
a
yeah.
read through, we do a rehearsal, and then we record.
So,
I never seen Baroque back in GameStop when I worked there. I never knew
That's-
what it was.
well, that's where I got it. And I want to read the back here. So, death is not the end. Dark, challenging, and wholly immersive, Baroque is a hardcore dungeon-crawling RPG experience. A cataclysm has destroyed the empires of man, and it falls to you to fight your way down through the levels of the Neuro Tower. In search of absolution, you will find death in the depths, yet learn the death is not the end of the story. In this twisted world of Baroque, it is only the beginning.
Is there just one guy who writes every RPG description?
Yeah.
I hope so.
Everything
Rich.
is like you're descending into the, and then there's square
Game
brackets,
of thing.
catacombs, dungeons.
There's like the fucking Don
ruins.
LaFontaine of back of the box descriptions. He's
For
everywhere.
example, perhaps let me just randomly go look up the description of Darkest Dungeon on Steam, and we'll just see how many.
See how it compares.
See how it compares.
There's a word pool that they pull from, and that's pretty much the entirety.
It's the manatees with the idea balls.
Oh yeah.
Recruit, train, and lead a team of heroes through twisted forests, forgotten warrens, ruined crypts, and beyond. You'll battle unimaginable foes, stress, famine, disease, and the ever-encroaching dark.
I have no idea why it happened.
Against an array of fearsome monsters.
But like all of a sudden, your lips are entirely desynced from your voice, so it looks like a Japanese dub is happening while you're reading that description for me just now. Oh man!
The #1 review of Darkest Dungeon is negative.
Oh, that's a little surprising, actually.
All right, hold on. Everyone straight up just desynced.
Very surprised.
Why in the world did we just desync? I'm glad this is happening near the end at least.
Yeah,
yeah, everything's desynced. Yeah. Everybody's desynced.
All right, well, anyway, that's going to do it, I guess, for the show today.
Rogue's pretty cool. You should check it out.
Yeah. Don't do that. Don't do that. That freaks me out. Thanks for watching this episode of the Roundtable Podcast. These guys, you can't even, like, I don't think they can hear me anymore, honestly, so I guess we're just going to finish off the show this way, but, thank you very much for watching. We got to say a big thank you to our $5 tier and above supporters for this show. You can go to patreon.com/roundtable. Any tiny little amount helps. Like we were saying, if everybody just subscribed for $1 a channel on YouTube, ads could go away forever. So if you want to support that ideal world, check it out. Thank you very much to Max, Christopher, Casey, EP Diablo, Alexander, Jonathan, Cataby, Jeff Rush, Robert, Vaxid, Matt, Julian, Hired Help, Caspian Crawdad, Kevin, Rumble Muffin, who has been helping me out a lot. Thank you very much, Rumble Muffin. Maximilian, Smurfette, Logan Ray, Ignacio, Full-Grown Gaming, Simon, Kyle, Jabonis, Christopher, Garju, Batman 9502, Kaj, Starcopper, Eroticals, Vandervet, whose first name I still have not learned to pronounce because I am a piece of shit, Laurel, Grace, Peter, Thomas Cashman, Michael, Zachary, Unix 388, Sebastian, John Morrison, Michael, Justin, Positron, Morton, Scott, Urbane, Muskiff DP, Jesse, Chris, J. Kyle, Pittman, Fred Durst. Fred Durst has made an appearance finally in the patrons list. A Yellow Forklift, Michael, Andreas, Dolam, Will the Foe, Kyle, Suicide Printing, Zmod, Wolves at My Door, Jeremy, Eric, Dilling, Tobias, Salty Onion, Chris, Grimbo, Andrew, James Schmidt, Chris, Graham, Will, J. Lindsay, Kelpfurter, Sam, Christopher, Titan, Luke, J.H. Paul, Nathan, Rusty Hole, Chris, Constantinos, Donut Overlord, Jose, Benjamin, Jordan, Brizzlebrip, Andrew, Sebastian, Andrew, Cooper, Marvin, Luke, Ian, the Awacock, Julian, Lucas, Dudoc22, Jack, Tobias, Jackakar, Doug, Hammerschnitz, Tom, Hugh Perry, Big D Docking Dude, Joseph, and Connor.
We gotta find a better way of doing that.
What the goddamn hell?
Thank you.
Thank you.
How are we not happy about that every time that happens? There's
I am
big
happy
list of
about
amazing people. So thank you very much to all
Time
of
is
you.
money, baby.
That's right.
Time is money, friend.
Twitter.com/RoundtablePC for updates. We tweet about stuff periodically. We're also now doing the regular live stream broadcasts that is typically taking place every other Tuesday over on twitch.tv/RoundtablePodcast if you want to go follow and check that out as well. And please do us a big favor. Go rate and review the show on iTunes. Just help out drastically. Thank you very much for doing that as well. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Next show will be on the, this is going to be the 17th. 17th of April will be the next Roundtable podcast. Thank you all for watching. And
bye.
See you later.
We got them all. Yeah, I was worried, but we did it. We did a proper show.
Woo, get it, Reddit.
This podcast is entirely supported by you, the listener. To consider supporting us as well as seeing the ways in which you can become a part of the show, visit patreon.com/roundtable.